Hello guys, welcome to Cosmic Wand. So in this video, we will see what if Harry inherited a magical throne that only activated when surrounded by 7 bonded witches. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Weight of Crowns. The Goblin's letter arrived at 6:47 a.m., 3 minutes before Harry's 17th birthday officially began, and it ruined what was shaping up to be a perfectly acceptable morning of pretending he didn't exist. Inheritance claim requiring immediate presence, Harry read aloud, squinting at the sharp handwriting. Failure to appear constitutes forfeiture of considerable assets and may result in legal action. Happy bloody birthday to me. He'd been sitting on the back steps of the burrow, watching the sun crawl over the orchard and enjoying the rare silence. Mrs. Weasley wouldn't start breakfast chaos for another hour. Ron snored loud enough to hear through 2 floors. For 20 precious minutes, nobody needed him to be anything. Then a Gringotts owl had dive-bombed his tea. Harry turned the letter over, looking for more explanation, but goblins didn't waste parchment on details. Just threats and a time, 9 a.m. sharp. The seal bore marks he didn't recognize. Not the standard Gringotts crest. Something older, more angular. What V you got there? Harry startled. Hermione stood in the doorway, already dressed, because of course she was. The girl probably scheduled her sleep cycles. Bank summons, he said, holding it up. Apparently I'm inheriting something considerable. Which is news to me, since I thought my parents' vault was already... Let me see. Hermione crossed the space in 3 steps and plucked the letter from his fingers. Her eyes moved fast, then stopped. Moved again. Stopped longer. Harry. This seal. Yeah, I noticed. Never seen it before. I have. Her voice had gone strange. Tight. In a book. A very old book about magical dynasties that predate the Ministry. Harry, this is the seal of the Avalon throne. The what throne? Avalon. As in the Avalon. The seat of magical power before Hogwarts existed, before the founders were even born. The supposed to be legend. Myth. Hermione looked up at him with an expression he'd never seen on her face before. Something close to fear. Harry, this shouldn't be possible. The Avalon line ended 1,000 years ago. Clearly not, Harry said. Since they're demanding I show up to claim furniture. This isn't a joke. Hermione. He stood, taking the letter back. I've been the boy who lived, the heir of Slytherin, the Triwizard Champion, and the Chosen One. If someone wants to add Throne Boy to the list, they can get in line. I'll go to Gringotts, sign whatever paperwork, and be back for lunch. She grabbed his arm. You shouldn't go alone. Probably not. Harry glanced at the quiet house. But Ron's unconscious. The twins aren't here, and your parents would murder you if you disappeared to a bank vault without warning. I'll be fine. It's just goblins. Harry, 3 hours. If I'm not back, you can organize the rescue party. I know how much you love organizing things. He disapparated before she could argue, which was both rude and necessary. Hermione in research mode would delay him until next Tuesday. Diagon Alley at 8:30 in the morning was a different beast than its afternoon chaos. Shop owners swept storefronts. Delivery wizards operated in with crates of potions, ingredients, and owl treats. A few early customers drifted toward Flourish and Blots, probably Hogwarts parents getting ahead of the September rush. Nobody noticed Harry. He'd gotten better at that, walking like he belonged, keeping his head down, moving with purpose. Fame was a visibility problem, and visibility was solved through body language. Gringotts' white marble gleamed in the early sun. Harry climbed the steps, passed the security goblins without incident, and approached the nearest teller. Harry James Potter. I received a summons regarding an inheritance claim. The goblin looked up, looked down at something below the counter, looked up again with an expression Harry couldn't read. Follow me. Not please wait or take a number. Follow me. Immediate. That wasn't normal. The goblin led him past the main hall, through a door Harry had never noticed, down a corridor that definitely hadn't existed in his previous visits, and into an elevator that dropped so fast his ears popped 3 times. "How far down are we going?" Harry asked. "Far enough." The elevator stopped. The doors opened onto a hallway lit by torches that burned silver instead of orange. The walls were carved with symbols that made Harry's scar itch. Not painfully, just a low hum of recognition, like seeing a word he should know but couldn't quite read. "The inheritance chamber," the goblin announced. "Your account manager awaits." Harry walked forward. The hallway ended at massive double doors, easily 15 feet tall, covered in more of those strange symbols. They swung open as he approached. The chamber beyond was circular, domed, and dominated by a single object. A throne carved from black stone shot through with veins of gold. It sat on a raised platform at the room's center, and even from 30 feet away, Harry could feel it. Not magic exactly, presence. Like the throne was aware of him. "Mr. Potter." A goblin stood beside the platform, older than most Harry had seen, with gray streaking his pointed ears and scars crossing his hands. "I am Ragnarok, Senior Account Manager for the Avalon Trust. Please, approach." Harry crossed the chamber. His footsteps echoed. The throne's presence grew stronger with each step, pressing against his senses like someone standing too close. "I'm going to need an explanation," Harry said when he reached the platform. "A thorough one, with small words, ideally, because I have no idea what's happening." Ragnarok's lips twitched. "Amusement, maybe. Direct. Good. The throne appreciates honesty." He gestured to the black stone seat. "You stand before the throne of Avalon. It has been dormant for 1,043 years, since the death of the last king, Aldrich the Betrayed. Upon his murder, the throne sealed itself, waiting for a worthy heir to reach magical maturity. And I'm supposedly that heir." "There is no supposedly, Mr. Potter. Blood does not lie to goblins. Your mother's line descends from Aldrich's youngest daughter, Elara, who survived the massacre through absence. She'd been sent away before the betrayal, hidden among common witches. The bloodline thinned over generations, lost its memory of itself, but never vanished entirely. Lily Evans was born with enough Avalon blood to pass the inheritance forward. You are the first male heir in 1,000 years." Harry stared at the throne. Stared back if stone could stare. "My mother was a Muggle-born. A common misconception. She was Muggle-raised. An important distinction. Her magic came from somewhere, Mr. Potter. It came from here." "Okay." Harry rubbed his forehead. The scar hum was getting louder. "Let's say I believe this. What does inheriting a throne actually mean? I'm not interested in ruling anything. I just finished fighting one Dark Lord. I'm not looking to become another." Ragnarok's expression shifted. Surprise, Harry thought, though goblin faces were hard to read. "You misunderstand the throne's purpose. Avalon's kings were not tyrants. They were guardians. The throne sits at the nexus of Britain's ley lines, the channels through which wild magic flows. Whoever bonds with the throne can direct that flow, strengthen wards, calm magical storms, sense threats to the land itself. Aldrich used this power to protect magical Britain for 60 years. Before him, his father did the same, and his grandfather, back through 50 generations. Protect it from what? Anything, everything. The throne's power is not unlimited, but it is substantial. In your hands, it could reinforce Hogwarts wards, seal breaches between our world and darker ones, track magical threats across the entire island." Ragnarok paused. "It could also make you one of the most powerful wizards alive. Which brings us to the complication." Of course, there was a complication. "Go on." "The throne does not grant its power freely. Aldrich learned this when he first claimed it. The magic must be anchored, stabilized through external bonds." Ragnarok gestured to the throne's armrests, where 7 distinct symbols were carved, each different, each pulsing with faint light. 7 bonds. 7 witches who choose to link their magic to yours. Without them, the throne remains dormant. You remain its heir in name only. Harry's brain caught up with the words. 7 witches, bonded to me, As in, not marriage, not servitude, connection. The throne requires genuine emotional bonds, trust, loyalty, affection, consents deception. Any witch who bonds falsely will find the connection rejected, painfully. Those who bond truly become part of the throne's power structure. Their magic flows into you, yours flows back to them. Symbiosis. That's insane. That is Avalon. Harry turned away from the throne, pacing the chamber's edge. His thoughts raced. 7 witches. Genuine bonds. 1,000-year-old seat of power. Ley lines. Guardianship. And somewhere, surely, someone who'd want to take all of it from him. Who else knows about this? He asked. The goblins have kept the Avalon Trust sealed since Aldrich's death. No records exist in Ministry archives. They were destroyed during the Founder's era, when certain parties preferred the old powers forgotten. Ragnar's voice hardened. However, the throne's awakening at your maturity sent ripples through the ley lines. Those sensitive to such things will have felt it. By tonight, I expect several interested parties will be aware that something significant has changed. Interested parties. Be specific. The Ministry of Magic will want the throne under their control. Various pureblood families will see opportunity for political advantage. And Ragnar hesitated. Actually hesitated, which scared Harry more than anything so far. There are older players, those who remember Aldrich's fall, who perhaps caused it. The people who murdered the last king. We do not know their current state. 1,000 years is long, even for wizards. But if they survived, if they have been waiting, Ragnar met Harry's eyes. They will come for you, Mr. Potter. The throne's power in the wrong hands could reshape magical Britain entirely. In their hands, it could unmake it. Harry looked at the throne again. It sat there, ancient and patient, radiating that strange awareness, waiting for him to decide. What happens if I refuse? If I just walk away? The inheritance transfers to no one. The throne remains dormant. The ley lines continue unguided, which has caused increasing instability over the past millennium. Magical storms, ward failures, creature migrations. And whoever killed Aldrich will be free to seek the throne through other means. Darker means. So my choices are accept cosmic responsibility for an entire country, or let bad things happen because I was too tired to deal with it. I would not phrase it so bleakly, but essentially, yes. Harry laughed. It wasn't a happy sound, right? Because that's completely different from every other choice I've ever been given. He approached the throne, reached out. His fingers stopped an inch from the armrest, and he felt it. Magic, raw and vast, pushing against his hand like water against a dam. The throne was testing him, tasting him. The bond is not immediate, Ragnar said from behind him. Touching the throne will mark you as its heir, but full access requires the 7. Until then, you will have partial gifts, sensitivity to the ley lines, minor defensive enchantments, enough to paint a target on your back without the weapons to defend it. Encouraging. I am a goblin. We prefer honesty to comfort. Harry's hand hovered. The magic pushed harder, and he realized it wasn't hostile. It was eager. 1,000 years of waiting, and finally, someone had come. If I do this, he said slowly, I'm going to need allies. Real ones. Not people trying to use me for political advantage. The throne can help identify those whose intentions are genuine. It is perceptive. And these 7 bonds, I can't force them, can't manipulate them. The witches have to actually care for you. Yes, the throne demands authenticity. Anything less and the magic recoils. 7 witches who genuinely cared about him. Not Harry Potter the symbol, not the boy who lived, not the weapon against Voldemort. Him. The real person underneath all the titles. Harry wasn't sure 7 people like that existed in the world. But he thought about Hermione's face this morning. Fear for him, not of him. He thought about Luna's strange certainty, the way she looked at him like she saw something nobody else noticed. He thought about the DA, about people who'd fought beside him not because they had to but because they chose to. Maybe, just maybe, "All right," Harry said, and pressed his palm against the throne. The world went white. Power crashed through him like a wave breaking against cliffs. Harry felt his knees buckle, felt the stone floor hit them, but the sensation was distant, unimportant, because his mind was suddenly everywhere at once. He felt Hogwarts wards, ancient and layered, humming with protective magic. Felt Diagon Alley above him, the bustle of morning shoppers as tiny sparks of life. Felt the land itself, the deep channels where magic flowed like underground rivers, connecting every magical place in Britain to every other. And beneath it all, holding everything together, the throne spoke to him. Not in words, in impressions, emotions, flashes of memory that weren't his. 50 generations of kings, each one accepting the same burden, each one using this power to protect and serve. Wars fought, disasters averted, sacrifices made. The last image hit hardest. Aldrich, old and tired, standing before this same throne as enemies closed in. Betrayed by those he trusted. Dying not in battle but from a knife in the back. Wielded by someone who'd stood beside him for decades. His final thought, pressed into the throne's memory like a handprint in wet clay, protect the next one. Don't let them die alone. Harry gasped. The vision shattered. He was on his knees in the inheritance chamber, shaking, covered in sweat, and something had changed inside him. Something fundamental. Mr. Potter? Ragnarok stood nearby, watching with clinical interest. The bonding shock often disorients. I felt him, Harry said. His voice came out rough. Aldrich. I felt him die. Ragnarok's expression flickered. The throne carries echoes of its previous wielders, a feature some find distressing. He was murdered by someone he trusted completely. Yes, the histories are unclear on specifics, but the betrayal was intimate. Aldrich's inner circle turned against him, led by his most trusted advisor, a wizard named Malachi Vane. Harry's head snapped up. Was? We do not know. Malachi vanished after Aldrich's death. Some believe he died. Others. Ragnarok shrugged, a deeply ungoblinish gesture. 1,000 years is long, but dark wizards have found ways to extend their lives before. If Malachi survived, the throne's awakening will have drawn his attention. Harry stood. His legs felt steadier than expected, the throne's magic already integrating, stabilizing him. He could feel it now, a constant presence at the back of his mind. Watching, waiting. I need to get back. People will worry. Of course. But Mr. Potter. Ragnarok produced a small box from his robes. The throne's signet. It will identify you to those who recognize Avalon's authority and protect you from minor magical attacks. I suggest wearing it. Harry opened the box. Inside sat a ring, black metal banded with gold, the same symbol from the letter's seal carved into its face. When he slipped it on, the metal warmed against his skin, and he felt the throne's presence strengthen slightly. The goblins remain neutral in wizarding politics, Ragnarok said as Harry turned toward the door. But we remember Avalon. King Aldrich was a friend to our nation when few wizards bothered. If his heir needs assistance, Gringotts will not refuse. Thank you. Genuinely. Thank me by surviving. The paperwork for intestate throne succession would be extraordinarily tedious. Harry almost smiled at that. Almost. The elevator ride up felt longer than the descent. Harry's mind raced through implications, possibilities, threats. 7 witches. Genuine bonds. Ancient enemies. And he'd thought fighting Voldemort was complicated. The elevator doors opened onto the Gringotts lobby. Harry stepped out, nodded to the nearest teller, and headed for the main doors, screaming. He heard it before he saw anything, high, terrified, coming from outside. Then the explosion, close enough to shake dust from Gringotts' ceiling, and Harry was running before his brain finished processing what was happening. Diagon Alley had become a war zone. The street that had been peaceful 20 minutes ago was now chaos. Shoppers fled in every direction. 2 buildings were on fire. Bodies lay motionless near the leaky cauldron entrance. Harry couldn't tell if they were dead or stunned, and he didn't have time to check, because the attackers were still there. 6 of them, robed in gray, faces hidden behind masks that looked wrong somehow, like the features were carved rather than formed. They moved through the crowd with brutal efficiency, stunning anyone who ran, killing anyone who fought back. One of them turned toward Gringotts, toward Harry. Found him. The voice came out distorted, inhuman. The heir is here. All 6 attackers pivoted. Spells flew. Harry threw himself sideways, hit the marble steps rolling, and came up with his wand already moving. Protego! The shield caught 2 curses, shattered under a third. He dove behind a decorative pillar, bought himself 2 seconds to think. 6 attackers. Professional. Knew he'd be here, knew what he was. Not random violence, targeted assassination. The throne's magic stirred in his chest, offering something. Harry reached for it instinctively and felt power flood his wand arm, more than he'd ever channeled before. Stupefy. The spell that left his wand wasn't red. It was gold, blazing like concentrated sunlight, and it hit the nearest attacker with enough force to launch him 30 feet backward into a shopfront. The man didn't get up. The other 5 hesitated. Just a moment, just a flicker of uncertainty, but Harry used it. He burst from cover, moving fast, not giving them time to regroup. Another golden stunner took down the second attacker. A shield charm, stronger than anything he'd managed before, deflected a killing curse. He closed distance on the third, got inside spell range, and dropped him with a punch augmented by magic he didn't fully understand. 3 down. 3 left. They were adapting, spreading out, trying to flank him. Harry felt the throne's awareness expand, showing him their positions like chess pieces on a board. 1 behind, 1 left, 1 right, all preparing to cast simultaneously. He couldn't block 3 directions at once. Harry! The shout came from his left. A blur of motion, pink hair, fierce expression, and suddenly Tonks was there, her wand spitting hexes at the flanking attacker. The man's curse went wide. Tonks hit him with something that made his legs buckle. "Or backup incoming," she yelled. "What the hell is happening?" Long story. Harry blocked another curse. "Get the civilians clear. I'm not leaving you. Please." Something in his voice made her listen. Tonks threw 1 more hex, then turned to help the fleeing shoppers. Harry focused on the remaining 2 attackers. They'd stopped advancing. The closer one, their leader maybe, was staring at Harry's hand. At the ring. The throne chose. The distorted voice carried something new. Fear? Awe? He actually bonded. Malachar needs to know. Malachar. Harry raised his wand. "He sent you." The leader laughed. A horrible sound through that wrong mask. "Sent us? Boy, he made us. 1,000 years we've waited. The master will not be denied his prize." Both attackers disapparated. 1 second they were there, the next they'd vanished with sharp cracks of displacement. Harry stood in the destroyed street, breathing hard, surrounded by unconscious enemies and scattered debris. His hand ached where he gripped his wand. The throne's power faded slowly, leaving him drained but alive. Malachar, the betrayer, the man who'd murdered the last king, still alive after 1,000 years. And he knew about Harry now. Potter. Tonks jogged back, her hair cycling through colors like a nervous tell. "Ministry responders are 2 minutes out. You want to explain what just happened?" Harry looked at the 3 unconscious attackers, at the damage, at the terrified faces of civilians peering from shop windows. "Not here," he said. "Somewhere private. And I'm going to need more than just you to hear this." Tonks studied him for a long moment. Whatever she saw made her expression shift. Curiosity replacing alarm. "Fine. But Harry," she gestured at his ring. "That's new." "Yeah." He touched the metal, felt the throne's distant warmth. "It's very new." The Burrows kitchen had never felt so small. Harry sat at the scrubbed wooden table, still wearing clothes stained with dust and spell residue, facing an audience that had grown beyond what he'd expected. Hermione and Ron, obviously. Mrs. Weasley, who'd gone pale when he walked in but hadn't asked questions yet. And Tonks, who'd refused to leave despite having no official reason to stay. Avalon, Hermione repeated for the third time. The actual Avalon. And you're its heir. Blood confirmed by goblins. Trust me. I asked for a second opinion. Ron leaned forward. Mate, you're telling us there's been a secret throne of magical Britain this whole time, and it just happens to belong to you? Not secret. Forgotten. There's a difference. Harry rubbed his temples. The morning's drain was catching up. The throne's been dormant since the last king died. Nobody remembered it was real, except apparently the people who killed him because they just tried to kill me in Diagon Alley. Mrs. Weasley made a small sound. Tonks put a hand on her shoulder. The attackers said a name, Harry continued. Malachar. The goblin told me that was Aldrich's betrayer, the man who organized the murder. 1,000 years ago. He met their eyes one by one. He's still alive, and he sent those people specifically to stop me before I could claim the throne fully. Claim it fully, Hermione said slowly. You mentioned that before. What does that mean? Harry hesitated. This part was going to be harder to explain. The throne's power doesn't just transfer to an heir. It needs to be stabilized, anchored through connections. He took a breath. 7 of them. 7 witches who bond their magic to mine. Silence. Then Ron's eyebrows shot up. 7 witches. As in, not like that. Emotional bonds, not it's about trust. Genuine connection. The throne can tell if someone's faking. Harry felt his face heat. I know how it sounds. Believe me, I had the same reaction. But without these bonds, Hermione said, her brain clearly already racing ahead, you can't access the full power, right? I've got partial abilities now. That's how I held off those attackers. The throne gave me something extra. But it's not enough to defend against whatever Malachar's planning. So you need to find 7 witches who actually care about you. Ron scratched his head. That's a really specific requirement. I think that's the point. The throne doesn't want someone who'd abuse the power. It wants someone who builds genuine relationships. Harry shrugged. Whether I can actually find 7 people willing to link themselves to my disaster of a life is another question. Tonks had been quiet, but now she spoke up. I felt something during the fight, when you cast those golden spells. It was, she struggled for words. Warm, protective, not like dark magic at all. That's the throne, or part of it. Harry looked at her. You stayed and helped. You didn't have to. You were being attacked by creepy mask-wearing assassins. What was I supposed to do? Watch. Some people would have. Some people are idiots. Mrs. Weasley stood abruptly. Tea. Everyone needs tea. And food. You haven't eaten, Harry. Don't think I didn't notice. She bustled toward the stove, clearly needing something to do with her hands. In the moment of movement, Hermione leaned close to Harry. The bonding requirement. Does it have to be romantic? Ragnarok said emotional connection. Trust, loyalty, affection. He didn't specify type. Her eyes flickered. Something passed through her expression, calculation, consideration before she sat back. We're going to need more information. Books, records, anything that survived from the Avalon era. If this Malachar has been planning for 1,000 years, we're at a massive disadvantage. The goblins might help. Ragnarok said they remember the old alliance. Good. Ron and I can start there while you... Hermione paused. What are you going to do? Harry thought about the throne's presence in his mind, the way it had shown him potential threats during the fight. About Malachar's soldiers, their wrong masks, their casual violence. I'm going to find out who else might be targeted. If Malachar's moving now, it's not just about me. There's something bigger happening. You shouldn't do that alone, Tonks said. After today's attack, you're going to need protection. Real protection, not just jumping in front of curses. I didn't ask you to. You didn't have to. Tonks met his eyes steadily. Whatever's coming, Potter, you don't have to face it solo. Some of us actually want to help. Harry opened his mouth to argue, but something stopped him. The throne's awareness, maybe, or just exhaustion breaking through his usual stubbornness. Tonks wasn't offering out of obligation or politics. She was offering because she'd seen him in danger and chosen to act. Genuine connection. That's what the throne needed. Maybe it started like this. Not with grand gestures or dramatic confessions, but with simple moments of choice. Someone deciding to stand beside you when they could have walked away. Okay, Harry said quietly. Then help me figure out our next move. Because I have a feeling today was just the opening shot. The sun had fully risen outside, spilling golden light through the Burrows' kitchen windows. Mrs. Weasley pressed toast and eggs into Harry's hands. Hermione spread parchment across the table, already sketching notes about Avalon history. Ron argued with Tonks about security protocols. Normal chaos, wrapped around completely abnormal circumstances. Harry ate mechanically, his mind elsewhere. The throne hummed at the edge of his awareness, patient and vast, waiting to see what he'd do next. He could feel the ley lines now if he concentrated. Faint threads of power crisscrossing beneath the earth, connecting places of magical significance like a hidden nervous system. One of those threads pulsed differently, darker, coming from the southeast. London, he thought. Something's wrong in London. But that was tomorrow's problem. Today he needed to survive, to plan, to figure out who he could trust and how to convince them that trusting him back wouldn't get them killed. 7 bonds. 7 witches. 1,000-year-old enemy. Happy 17th birthday, Harry Potter. The worst part? He had a feeling this was still the easy part. Malachi Vane stood in a chamber deep beneath London, watching the report play out in shimmering magical projection. His agents, defeated. The air, already touching the throne's power. Faster than expected, he murmured. His form had changed over the centuries. The flesh he wore now was borrowed, stolen from a ministry clerk who'd wandered too close to the wrong shadow. It would last another few months before he needed a replacement. The inconvenience of immortality. My lord. One of his lieutenants knelt nearby, masked and waiting. Shall we send another team? No. Direct assault clearly won't work. The boy has allies, and the throne has begun protecting him. Malachi turned from the projection. We need a different approach. Something subtler. Infiltration. Eventually. But first we need to isolate him. Cut off potential bonds before they can form. Malachi smiled with lips that didn't quite fit his stolen face. The throne requires 7 witches. We need to ensure he never finds them. Or that the ones he finds are ours. The lieutenant bowed. It will be done. Malachi dismissed him with a wave and returned to the projection. Harry Potter's face stared back at him. Young, tired, completely unaware of what he'd stepped into. Eldrick had looked like that once. Full of righteousness, convinced he could protect everyone, blind to the knives being sharpened behind his back. It had taken Malachi 60 years to destroy that king. He'd planted doubts, stoked jealousies, positioned pieces with patience that drove lesser men mad. He would not need 60 years this time. The heir was alone, untrained, surrounded by enemies he couldn't see. One wrong bond, one misplaced trust, and the throne of Avalon would finally be his. 1,000 years he'd waited. What was a few more months? Harry woke at midnight, jolted from sleep by the throne's warning pulse. He lay still in his borrowed bed at the Burrow, listening. Outside, owl cries and whined through the orchard. Inside, the creak of old wood settling. Nothing obviously wrong, but the pulse came again. Stronger. Southeast. London. And this time, it carried an image. A young woman with silver blonde hair, fighting for her life against gray-robed attackers. A face Harry recognized from photographs and the Triwizard Tournament. Fleur Delacour. They were going after potential bonds, eliminating his options before he even knew who they were. Harry threw off his blankets and grabbed his wand. Time to move. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2. Ice and Obligation. Harry hit the ground running in Southwark, the apparition point dumping him 3 blocks from where the throne's warning pulled. His trainers slapped wet cobblestones. It had rained here recently, the air thick with that particular London smell of exhaust and old stone and the Thames nearby. Fleur's magical signature blazed like a bonfire in his new senses. Bright, fierce, and surrounded by darker presences that felt wrong in the same way the Diagon Alley attackers had felt wrong. He rounded a corner into a narrow service alley and found chaos. Fleur Delacour stood with her back against a brick wall, wand moving in sharp, precise arcs as she held off 5 gray-robed figures. Her silver hair had come loose from its braid, whipping around her face as she cast. Blood ran from a cut on her forehead. Her robes were torn at the shoulder. But she was winning. Harry watched her drop 2 attackers in the time it took him to draw breath. A curse that turned one's legs to jelly. A hex that sent another flying into a dumpster with a clang that echoed off the walls. She moved like a dancer, economy in every gesture, nothing wasted. Then the 6th attacker appeared behind her. Down! Harry's stunner caught the man mid-curse, gold light blazing through the alley's darkness. Fleur spun, saw him, and for 1 second her concentration broke. One of the remaining attackers exploited it. A cutting curse sliced toward her unprotected side. Harry didn't think. He threw himself forward, the throne's magic surging through him, and caught the curse on a shield that materialized from instinct rather than incantation. The impact drove him back 2 steps. His arm went numb from elbow to fingertips. Potter! Fleur's voice cut through the ringing in his ears. What are you? Later. He fired another stunner, missed, adjusted, fired again. This one connected. 3 attackers down, 2 left, and they were retreating now, disapparating with sharp cracks before Harry could stop them. The alley went quiet except for heavy breathing. Harry turned to Fleur. Up close. She looked different from his memory. Older, sharper. The softness of 17 replaced by the edges of someone who'd seen real combat. Her wand stayed raised, pointed at his chest. How did you find me? She demanded. It's complicated. Simplify it. Harry held up his hand, showing the ring. In the dim light, the Avalon sigil seemed to glow faintly. This told me you were in danger. I don't fully understand how, but it's connected to something called the Throne of Avalon. Fleur's wand lowered an inch. Her eyes had gone wide. That seal. I've seen it in Gringotts archives. But that's impossible. The Avalon line ended 1,000 years ago. Everyone keeps telling me that. And yet, Harry gestured at the unconscious attackers. These people work for someone named Malachar. He killed the last king, and apparently he's been waiting ever since for the throne to choose a new heir. Lucky me. Fleur stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed. A sharp, disbelieving sound. Of course it's you. The universe has a sense of humor. I've noticed. Harry's arm was starting to regain feeling, pins and needles crawling from shoulder to wrist. Are you hurt badly? Scratches. Nothing a healing charm won't fix. But she winced as she moved, and Harry saw the way she favored her left leg. Perhaps a few bruises also. We should go. Somewhere safe. These weren't all of them. I am aware. Fleur's voice cooled. I am not some damsel requiring rescue, Potter. I am a cursebreaker. I have handled worse than gray-robed idiots with delusions of. I know. I watched you take down 3 of them before I even got close. Harry met her eyes steadily. I'm not here because I think you're helpless. I'm here because that ring told me they were targeting you specifically, and I didn't know why until right now. And why is that? Because the throne needs bonds to fully awaken. 7 of them. And apparently Malachar's strategy is to eliminate anyone I might bond with before the connections can form. Harry paused, letting that land. I don't know why you're on his list. I don't know what it means. But I know those attackers will send reinforcements, and neither of us should be standing here when they arrive. Fleur studied him. Her wand had lowered fully now, though her posture stayed tense. You genuinely don't know why I might be relevant to an ancient magical throne. I learned about the throne 6 hours ago. I'm still catching up. Something shifted in her expression. Curiosity replacing hostility, or at least joining it. There are stories in my family. Old stories dismissed as legend. My grandmother spoke of a time when the Vila served as guardians to a great magical king. Advisors and protectors, bound by oaths of loyalty. Her lips twisted. I always thought it was fairy tale, a way to make our heritage seem noble rather than merely decorative. Maybe it wasn't a fairy tale. Perhaps not. Fleur looked at the unconscious attackers, then back at Harry. I have a safe house, warded against intrusion, unknown to the ministry. We can talk there. Lead the way. The safe house turned out to be a narrow townhouse in Kensington, wedged between two Muggle residences that showed no awareness of its existence. Fleur keyed them through wards that made Harry's teeth ache, and they emerged into a sitting room cluttered with books, artifacts, and what looked like half-disassembled curse objects. Gringotts work, Fleur said, noticing his look. I take assignments home sometimes. Sit. I need to check the perimeter wards before we speak further. She disappeared up a narrow staircase. Harry settled onto a worn sofa and let his head fall back against the cushions. The throne's presence hummed quietly in his mind, satisfied, maybe, that he'd found Fleur in time. Or maybe just processing information. Hard to tell with ancient magical artifacts. His arm had stopped tingling. The cut on his palm from blocking that curse had already closed, leaving only a faint pink line. Accelerated healing. Another throne benefit he hadn't known about. Fleur returned 10 minutes later, her forehead wound cleaned and her robes changed for Muggle clothes. Jeans and a loose sweater that made her look almost ordinary. Almost. The wards are intact. No tracking spells on either of us. She sat in a chair across from him, legs folded beneath her. Now, explain everything. From the beginning. Harry did. The Gringotts summons. Ragnarok's explanation. The throne's bonding requirements. The attack in Diagon Alley. Malakar's soldiers and their wrong masks. By the time he finished, Fleur's expression had cycled through disbelief, recognition, and settled on something that looked like reluctant fascination. The 7 bonds, she said when he stopped. The throne requires genuine emotional connection. According to Ragnarok, consents deception. Anyone who bonds falsely gets rejected painfully. And you believe this applies to me because of old Vila oaths. I don't know what I believe. The throne warned me you were in danger. I came. Whatever connection exists or doesn't exist, that's between you and me, not some ancient magical requirement. Fleur tilted her head, studying him with an intensity that made him want to look away. You are different from the boy I remember. I was 14. I was different from everyone. No, that is not. She made a frustrated sound. Most men, when they look at me, they see the Vila, the allure. Even those who resist it are aware of it, thinking about it, measuring their responses against it. You looked at me in that alley and saw a fighter. Nothing else. You were fighting. Seemed like the relevant detail. That should not be possible. The allure affects everyone. Harry shrugged. Maybe the throne's blocking it. Or maybe I've had enough people try to manipulate me that I've gotten good at seeing past surfaces. Either way, I'm not going to treat you like a prize to be won. That's not why I came. Silence stretched between them. Fleur's expression did something complicated, softening and sharpening at the same time. You are very strange, Harry Potter. So I've been told. She unfolded from her chair and crossed to a cabinet against the wall, pulling out a bottle of amber liquid and 2 glasses. Fire whiskey. You look like you need it. I'm 17. You're the heir to an ancient magical throne being hunted by immortal assassins. I think the drinking age no longer applies. She poured 2 generous measures and handed him one. To survival. Harry clinked his glass against hers. To survival. The whiskey burned going down, but it was a good burn. Clarifying. I can't promise anything, Fleur said, settling back into her chair. This bonding requirement, these ancient oaths, I will not commit to something I don't understand. But, she swirled her glass, watching the liquid catch the light. I will help you investigate. Gringotts has records that might explain the historical connections. And if Malakar's people continue targeting me regardless of whether I've bonded, I would rather face them with allies than alone. That's more than I expected. Don't misunderstand. I am not doing this for you. Her eyes met his, cool and direct. I am doing this because those men tried to kill me in my city, and I want to know why. If the answers lie with your throne, then our interests align. For now. For now works. Fleur nodded sharply. Good. Then we should discuss immediate concerns. You said Malachar is targeting potential bonds. Who else might be on his list? Harry thought about the throne's warning system, the way it had flared when Fleur was in danger. I don't know. The throne warned me about you, but I don't know if that's because you're specifically connected to Avalon or because you happen to be closest when the attackers moved. We need to find out. If there are others being targeted, then they're in danger because of me. Harry set down his glass harder than necessary. Great. Another list of people whose lives get worse because Harry Potter exists. Self-pity does not suit you. It's not self-pity, it's pattern recognition. Fleur leaned forward. Listen to me. Those attackers came for me because of what I am, not because of you. The Vila connection to Avalon predates your birth by centuries. If Malachar has spent 1,000 years preparing, he has lists of potential bonds that have nothing to do with your choices. She held his gaze. You did not cause this. You interrupted it. There is a difference. Harry wanted to argue, but she had a point. Malachar's soldiers had known exactly where to find Fleur. They'd planned the ambush, set the trap, executed it with professional precision. That wasn't reactive. That was preparation. Long preparation. Okay, he said finally. So we need to figure out who else is on his list before he gets to them. The Gringotts archives might help. Historical records of Avalon alliances, bloodline connections, magical affinities that might qualify someone for bonding. Fleur stood, energy returning to her movements. I have access through my curse-breaking work. We can start tomorrow. Tomorrow, right? Harry glanced at the window, still dark outside, probably approaching 3 in the morning. I should get back. People will notice if I'm gone too long. You have allies? Beyond the usual Hogwarts circle. Some. Tonks, she's an Auror. She helped during the Diagon Alley attack. And Hermione's researching everything she can find about Avalon. Ron. He'll help however he can. Fleur's expression flickered at Tonks's name, but she didn't comment. Then you're not as alone as you think. Good. Malachar's greatest weapon will be isolation. He destroyed Aldrich by turning his allies against him. We cannot allow the same strategy to succeed twice. I told you, our interests align. Fleur moved toward the door, clearly dismissing him. Return tomorrow evening. I'll have initial research ready. And Potter, she paused with her hand on the doorknob. Don't do anything stupid before then. Dead heirs make poor allies. I'll try to restrain myself. See that you do. Harry apparat back to the borough's boundary. You couldn't apparate directly onto the property. The wards wouldn't allow it, and walked the familiar path toward the lopsided house. Dawn was starting to color the horizon, pink and gold bleeding into the darkness. He should be exhausted. Hours of combat, magical drain, emotional whiplash. But the throne's power hummed steadily in his chest, sustaining him, and his mind kept circling back to Fleur's words. You did not cause this. You interrupted it. Maybe. But interruption wasn't the same as solution. Malachar had 1,000 years of planning behind him. Harry had 6 hours of confused inheritance and partial powers. The math didn't favor him. He needed more bonds, more power, more allies who understood what they were facing. And he needed them fast, before Malachar eliminated his options entirely. You went where? Hermione's voice hit frequencies Harry hadn't known she could reach. He sat at the Burrow's kitchen table, nursing tea that had gone cold during his explanation, while she paced and gestured with increasing agitation. I had to. The throne warned me. So you apparat alone into an active combat zone against unknown enemies without telling anyone? Harry, what if they'd been waiting for you? What if it was a trap? It wasn't a trap. Fleur was genuinely in danger. You didn't know that. You couldn't have known that. Hermione stopped pacing, gripping the back of a chair. This is exactly what Malachar wants. You running off alone, making yourself vulnerable. He's had 1,000 years to plan. You've had one night. Stop acting like you're invincible. I'm not acting like anything. I made a call and it worked out. This time, Ron appeared in the doorway, looking bleary and confused. What's all the yelling about? It's barely 7. Harry snuck out last night to fight assassins in London. Oh, Ron scratched his head. How'd that go? Ron, what? It's a valid question. Did you win, mate? I helped. Fleur did most of the fighting herself. Harry stood, moving to the window. The morning sun was fully up now, the orchard glowing green and gold. She's going to research the Avalon connections at Gringotts. Try to figure out who else might be on Malakar's target list. Fleur Delacour? Ron's voice perked up. The Tri-Wizard champion? That Fleur. Yes, Ron. Try to focus. I'm focused. I'm just also impressed. She was... Finish that sentence and I'll hex you, Hermione said flatly. Ron shut his mouth. Harry turned from the window. Look, I know it was risky, but I can't just sit here waiting for bad things to happen. The throne gives me warnings for a reason. If I ignore them, people die. And if you follow them recklessly, you die. Hermione's voice had softened, the anger draining into something that looked more like fear. Harry, you're the only heir. If Malakar kills you, the throne stays dormant and he wins by default. Everything you do has to account for that. So what, I hide? Let him pick off potential bonds one by one while I stay safe. No, you build a team. You gather information. You make plans that don't involve solo midnight raids. She moved closer, putting a hand on his arm. I know you're used to being the one who acts while everyone else talks. But this is different. This is bigger than Voldemort, bigger than anything we've faced. You need to let people help you properly. Harry looked at her hand on his arm, thought about Fleur's words. Malakar's greatest weapon will be isolation. You're right, he said finally. I know you're right. It's just hard. Sitting still while people are in danger. Then don't sit still. Come with us to research. Help us figure out who needs protecting. Hermione squeezed his arm. Be part of the team, Harry. Not just the person the team protects. Yeah, mate. Ron had moved to the table, loading a plate with leftover toast. Besides, if you keep running off alone, you'll miss breakfast. And Mum's breakfast is worth living for. Despite everything, Harry smiled. Valid point. The next 2 days blurred together in a haze of research and revelation. Hermione attacked the Avalon question like a woman possessed, dragging every relevant book from Hogwarts library, via owl-ordered loans that technically violated about 6 school policies, and cross-referencing them with ministry genealogical records, access through means Harry chose not to ask about. By the second evening, she'd assembled a preliminary list of potential bond candidates, witches whose bloodlines or magical affinities connected to Avalon's history. Some of these make sense, she said, spreading parchment across the Burrow's dining table. Fleur's Vila heritage. There's strong historical evidence that Vila served Avalon's kings as advisors. Their magical sensitivity made them excellent at detecting threats and deception, which explains why Malakar went after her first, Harry said. Exactly. Others are less obvious. Hermione pointed to a name. Daphne Greengrass. Pureblood family, but their records show an ancestor who served in Aldrich's court as a healer. The magical gifts sometimes pass through bloodlines. Greengrass, that's the Ice Queen, right? Never talks to anyone outside Slytherin. That's the reputation. I don't actually know much about her personally. Neither does anyone, Ron muttered. She's been in our year for 6 years, and I've heard her speak maybe 5 times. Harry looked at the name. Something about it nagged at him. The throne's awareness stirring, not quite a warning but not comfortable either. Who else? Susan Bones. Her family has ministry connections going back centuries. But before that, they were part of Avalon's judicial system. The Bones were truth seekers. Magical lie detection was their specialty. Susan I know, DA member. Lost most of her family to Death Eaters. Right? Then there's Padma Patil, Her family's Indian heritage actually connects to pre-Hogwarts magical traditions that had exchange programs with Avalon. Magical knowledge sharing. Hermione smiled slightly. She'd probably be fascinated by the historical aspects. That's 4. The throne needs 7. I have possibilities for the others, but less certainty. Luna Lovegood. Luna! Ron looked skeptical. What's her connection? The Lovegoods were originally called the Lugfoots. They were Avalon seers, specifically recruited for their ability to perceive things others couldn't. Hermione shrugged. Luna's unusual perspective might be a descendant form of that gift. Harry thought about Luna. The way she saw Raxburts and Nargles that nobody else could see. The way she'd looked at him sometimes, like she was reading words written on his soul. That tracks, he said quietly. For the final 2, I'm less certain. Tonks has metamorphmagus abilities, which were historically associated with Avalon spies, shapeshifters who could go anywhere, become anyone. And there's a reference to a Sister of Ice in some of the older texts that might refer to a second Greengrass daughter. But that seems redundant. Astoria Greengrass, Harry said. The throne pulsed in his awareness. Daphne's younger sister. You know her. I know of her. Seen her around Hogwarts. She's fragile. Gets sick a lot. Another pulse from the throne. Stronger this time. Hermione, is there anything in those records about the Greengrass family and illness? Curses, maybe? Hermione frowned, flipping through her notes. Actually, yes, there's a passing reference in a genealogical study. Something about a blood curse affecting the female line. The study dismissed it as unreliable because the symptoms were too vague to verify. But if it's real, then both Greengrass sisters might be affected. Hermione's expression shifted to concern. Harry, if they're carrying an ancient curse, they might see bonding with the throne as a cure rather than a choice. That could complicate the authenticity requirement. Or it could mean they've been suffering for something they don't understand, and we might actually be able to help. Harry stood, restless energy driving him to pace. We need to talk to them, find out what's actually going on. We can't just approach pureblood Slytherins and ask about family curses, Ron said. They'd hex us before we finished the first sentence. Then we find another way. Harry stopped by the window, watching the sunset paint the orchard in shades of fire. Fleur said Malakar's greatest weapon is isolation. We can't let that work on anyone. Not me and not potential bonds who don't even know their targets. The throne hummed agreement. Somewhere out there, people were in danger because of connections they didn't know existed. Because a 1,000-year-old betrayer was still playing games with lives. Harry was done being reactive. Time to start making moves of his own. Hogwarts in late August was technically closed, but Harry had learned years ago that closed was a flexible concept when you knew the right entrances. He operated to Hogsmeade at mid-morning, walked to the Shrieking Shack, and used the tunnel that Sirius had shown him in 3rd year. It emerged in the Whomping Willow's roots, which he pacified with a well-aimed Immobulus charm. And from there the castle was a 5-minute walk across grounds that sat empty and peaceful under summer sun. The throne's awareness expanded as he approached Hogwarts' walls. He felt the ancient wards like a second skin, vast and intricate, protecting the school from threats both magical and mundane. They recognized something in him, Avalon heritage maybe, or just the raw power he carried, and parted smoothly to let him pass. He wasn't here for the castle, though. He was here for the one person who might know where to find the Greengrass family. Professor Snape. Tracking Snape during summer was impossible through normal means, but the throne's ley line sensitivity gave Harry an edge. Magical signatures left traces, and Snape's was distinctive, dark and controlled, like a knife kept perpetually sharpened. Harry followed that signature through the castle's empty corridors, down into the dungeons, and stopped outside a door he'd never noticed before. It opened before he could knock. Potter. Snape stood in the doorway, dressed in his usual black, expression caught somewhere between contempt and curiosity. The wards informed me of your intrusion. Care to explain why you've invaded my summer sanctuary? I need information about the Greengrass family. Snape's eyes narrowed. And you assumed I would provide it? I assumed you'd want to know why dark wizards are hunting your former students. Harry held up his ringed hand. This is the seal of Avalon. I inherited a magical throne yesterday. An immortal named Malachar is trying to kill anyone who might help me claim it fully. The Greengrass sisters are on his list. For 5 seconds, Snape said nothing. Then he stepped back from the doorway. Come in, and explain everything. Snape's private quarters were nothing like Harry expected. Books, yes, hundreds of them, lining every wall, but also comfortable furniture, warm lighting, and what looked like a half-finished potion bubbling gently in one corner. More human than Harry had imagined. He told Snape everything. The inheritance, the bonding requirements, the attacks. Snape listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable, until Harry finished. The Hollow Crown, Snape said finally. That's what the old texts call Malachar's followers. I'd thought them myth. You've heard of them? Every Slytherin hears whispers. Stories passed down through pure-blood families about an organization older than the Ministry, waiting for something. Most dismiss it as legend. But legends often contain truth. The Greengrass family, do they know about this? Are they connected? Not directly, but... Snape paused, choosing words carefully. The sisters both suffer from a curse. Ancient, bloodbound, slowly fatal. Their parents have spent fortunes seeking cures. If Malachar's people approached them offering solutions, they might be vulnerable to manipulation, or might already have been approached. Snape's eyes bored into Harry's. I tell you this not out of affection, Potter. I tell you because those girls are under my protection, and if outside forces are targeting them, I need to know. Then help me warn them. Help me explain what's happening before Malachar's people make an offer they can't refuse. And if they refuse to listen, then at least they'll know the truth. What they do with it is their choice. Snape studied him for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression. Not warmth, exactly, but something adjacent. Recognition, maybe, of someone trying to do the right thing despite impossible circumstances. The Greengrass estate is in Devon. I can arrange an introduction, but you'll need to tread carefully. Marcus Greengrass is protective of his daughters and his family's secrets. Snape moved to his desk, pulling parchment and quill. I'll send word tonight. Be prepared for resistance. I'm always prepared for resistance. Then perhaps you're not as foolish as I believed. Snape's quill scratched across parchment. Though your presence at my door suggests otherwise. Thanks, I think. The response came faster than Harry expected. An owl arriving at the burrow before dinner with an invitation, more of a summons, really, to visit Greengrass Manor the following afternoon. Harry read it twice, noting the formal language and careful phrasing. They're scared, Hermione said, looking over his shoulder. You can see it in the word choices. They're hoping you have answers but terrified you might make things worse. Can't blame them. Their daughters are cursed and now a strange wizard wants to talk about ancient thrones. I'd be scared too. You're going alone? Snape arranged the meeting for me specifically. Bringing a crowd might seem aggressive. Harry, I know. I'll be careful. And I'll tell you everything when I get back. Hermione didn't look satisfied, but she nodded. At least take this. She handed him a small mirror, not the communication mirror Sirius had given him, but something similar. Two-way connection. If anything goes wrong, I'll know immediately. Harry pocketed the mirror. Thanks, Hermione. Really. Just come back in one piece. Greengrass Manor sat on a hillside in Devon, surrounded by precisely manicured gardens and the kind of old-money silence that made Harry's teeth itch. The building itself was stone and slate, sprawling but not ostentatious, with windows that watched him approach like suspicious eyes. He dressed carefully, good robes borrowed from Ron's formal collection, the Avalon ring visible on his hand, wand holstered but accessible, walking the line between respect and readiness. The front door opened before he reached it. A house elf bowed low and gestured him inside. Master Potter is expected. This way, please. The interior was cooler than the summer heat outside, spelled for comfort, and decorated with the kind of understated elegance that cost more than it looked. Harry followed the elf through corridors lined with family portraits, generations of greengrasses watching him pass, their expressions ranging from curiosity to hostility. They stopped outside a study door. The elf knocked twice, announced him, and vanished. "Enter." Harry stepped into a room dominated by a massive fireplace and the man standing before it. Marcus Greengrass was tall, silver-haired, with the kind of face that had probably been handsome once and had aged into something harder. His wife sat nearby, darker-haired, delicate-featured, with shadows under her eyes that suggested chronic worry. And in chairs on the far side of the room, watching him with expressions he couldn't read, Daphne and Astoria Greengrass. "Mr. Potter." Marcus didn't offer his hand. "Severus speaks highly of your sincerity. Understand that I agreed to this meeting only on his recommendation." "I appreciate the opportunity, sir." "Don't appreciate it yet. You've asked to discuss my daughter's private affairs with their parents present. That is either brave or profoundly stupid." Marcus's eyes dropped to the ring on Harry's hand. "Severus mentioned the Avalon throne, an object I'd thought safely extinct. It was dormant. It woke when I reached magical maturity. And now ancient enemies stir, targeting anyone with potential connections to the throne's power, including, apparently, my family." "Yes, sir. Because of a curse." Marcus's voice hardened. "A curse we've kept private for 3 generations. How did you learn of it?" "Research into Avalon's historical allies. The Greengrass line served the old kings, healers, and advisors. The records mention a curse affecting the female line, though details were vague." "The details are not vague to us." Mrs. Greengrass spoke for the first time, her voice tight. "Our daughters are dying, Mr. Potter." Slowly. "Has your research told you that?" Harry looked at Daphne and Astoria. Daphne sat rigid, her famous Ice Queen mask firmly in place. But Astoria was smaller, paler, with a tremor in her hands she couldn't quite hide. Both beautiful, both clearly afraid. "No," Harry said quietly. "I didn't know it was that serious." "Then let me educate you." Marcus moved to stand behind his daughters, hands on their shoulders. "The curse is blood-bound, passed through mothers to daughters, activating at magical maturity. It drains life force slowly but inevitably. Most afflicted live 40 years at most. Many die younger." His grip tightened. Daphne began showing symptoms at 15. Astoria at 14. Without a cure, neither will see 30. The throne pulsed in Harry's chest. Not warning something else. Recognition, maybe, or possibility. "The bonding," Harry said. "The throne requires genuine emotional connections to fully awaken. But the connections work both ways. The bonded witches share in the throne's power, its protections, its healing. If the curse is magical in nature, you think bonding with you could cure them?" Daphne's voice was sharp. "How convenient for you, Potter. Dying girls desperate enough to accept any offer." "Daphne." Marcus's tone carried warning. "No, father. Let's speak plainly." Daphne stood, approaching Harry with steps that barely hid her unsteadiness. "You come here with tales of ancient thrones and deadly enemies, offering hope to people who've spent years watching hope crumble. What's your game? Political alliance? Pure blood legitimacy? A collection of vulnerable witches bound to serve? None of those things. Then what?" Harry met her eyes. Blue-gray, cold on the surface but something else underneath. Fear, pain, desperate anger. "The truth? I don't know if bonding would cure you. I don't know if you'd even want to bond, or if the connection would be possible without genuine emotion behind it. What I do know is that people are being attacked because of what I inherited, and you're on the list of targets. I came to warn you. That's all." "Just a warning?" "Just a warning. What you do with it is your choice." Daphne stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed, a brittle sound nothing like amusement. "You're either the most naive person I've ever met, or the most dangerous. Probably both." Something flickered in her expression. Interest, maybe, or just surprise at his honesty. Miss Greengrass. Harry chose his next words carefully. I'm not asking for anything. I'm not demanding bonds or loyalty or political support. But Malachar, the man hunting people with Avalon connections, he's been planning for 1,000 years. He'll approach you eventually, if he hasn't already. And his offers won't come with disclaimers about what he really wants. And yours do. I'm standing here telling you I don't know if I can help you, and that whatever happens is your decision. That's as honest as I know how to be. Daphne held his gaze for another beat. Then she turned to her parents. I want to hear more. Alone. Absolutely not. Marcus started. Father, I'm dying. Slowly but definitely. If there's even a chance this is real, that the throne's magic might help, I need to understand it. And I can't do that with you hovering. Mrs. Greengrass made a soft sound, distressed. But Marcus, after a long moment, nodded. Astoria stays with us. You have 1 hour. That's acceptable. Daphne turned back to Harry. There's a garden. We'll talk there. And Potter. Her mask slipped just slightly, showing something vulnerable beneath. If this is a trick, I will make your life extraordinarily unpleasant. I'd expect nothing less. The garden was walled and private, filled with roses that bloomed in colors Harry was pretty sure didn't exist in nature. Daphne led him to a stone bench near a fountain and sat with the careful movements of someone managing chronic pain. You can drop the act, she said when he settled beside her. I know I look terrible. You look exhausted. There's a difference. Is there? She pulled her sleeves down, hiding wrists that Harry glimpsed were marked with faint, dark lines. The curse shows on the skin eventually. Track marks of magic eating itself. Very attractive. I've got a lightning bolt on my face that attracts assassination attempts. We all have our things. Daphne snorted. Fair point. She turned to face him more fully. You want to know what's strange about you, Potter? You're not looking at me like I'm dying. You're looking at me like I'm a person. You are a person. Obviously. But most people can't see past the diagnosis. To them, I'm either a tragedy to pity or a problem to solve. You just talked to me, asked me questions, treated my decisions like they matter. They do matter. To you, to everyone. But yes, to me specifically too. Harry leaned forward, elbows on knees. I've spent my whole life being told what I was supposed to be. The boy who lived. The chosen one. Dumbledore's weapon. Everyone had plans for me, and nobody asked if I agreed with them. I'm not going to do that to anyone else. Daphne was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice had lost some of its edge. The curse started when I was 15. Just fatigue at first, easy to dismiss. Then the pain began. Then the marks. My parents spent thousands on healers, researchers, curse breakers. Nothing worked. Nothing even slowed it down. I'm sorry. Don't be. Sorry doesn't help. She pulled her sleeve back, showing him the dark tracings that climbed her forearm like twisted vines. Astoria's are worse. She's been symptomatic longer, even though she's younger. Something about her magic makes the curse more aggressive. The throne's power might counteract that. It's tied to the ley lines, the fundamental magical structure of Britain. If the curse is magical at its core, you don't know. I don't know. But I'd rather try than watch and do nothing. Daphne studied the marks on her arm. Her mask had cracked fully now, showing the frightened girl underneath the Ice Queen exterior. What would bonding actually involve? I'm not entirely sure. The goblin said it requires genuine emotional connection, trust, loyalty, affection. The throne can sense deception, so you can't fake it. And if I bonded truthfully, but it didn't cure the curse? Then you'd still be connected to the throne's power. Protection, healing enhancements, magical boost. Not a cure necessarily, but maybe enough to slow the progression. Maybe. Maybe's the best I can offer. Daphne laughed again, but it sounded different this time. Less brittle. You're not what I expected, Harry Potter. Gryffindors are supposed to be simple, brave and stupid and easy to read. I've been reading as too complicated lately. Side effect of cosmic inheritance. Apparently, she stood, extending a hand to help him up. Her grip was stronger than her frail appearance suggested. I'm not agreeing to anything. Not yet. But I'll consider what you've said. And I'll tell Astoria. She should know the options too. That's all I'm asking. Then we understand each other. Daphne held his hand a moment longer than necessary, studying his face. You really came here just to warn us. No ulterior motives. None. That's rare. She released his hand. I'll be in touch, Potter. Through Snape, probably. Safer than Owlpost if Malakar's people are watching. Smart. I'm a Slytherin. We're always smart. A ghost of her usual smirk crossed her face. Now go. Before my father decides 1 hour wasn't enough and comes charging out to defend my honor. Harry turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I hope you choose to live. However that happens. You deserve more than 40 years of dying slowly. Daphne's expression flickered. For just a second, she looked young. Younger than him, even. A teenager facing mortality and trying desperately to stay strong. We'll see, she said quietly. Go, Potter, and try not to get killed before I decide. Harry apparat back to the burrow as the sun was setting, landing in the orchard and walking slowly through the trees. His mind churned with everything he'd learned. The Greengrass curse, Daphne's hidden vulnerability, the weight of offering hope without guarantees. Hermione met him at the kitchen door. Well, they're dying. Both of them. The curse is worse than the records suggested. Can the throne help? Maybe. Probably. I don't know for certain. Harry ran a hand through his hair. I told her that. Told her I couldn't promise anything. She's going to think about it. That's all you can do. Is it? Because it doesn't feel like enough. Hermione put a hand on his arm, a gesture becoming habit between them. You're one person, Harry. You can't save everyone. The throne disagrees. It keeps showing me people in danger, expecting me to act. Then maybe the throne needs to adjust its expectations. Her voice was firm but kind. You're doing what you can. That matters. Harry looked at her. Really looked, seeing the concern in her eyes, the tension in her shoulders, the way she'd been running herself ragged helping him research and plan. She hadn't asked for any of this either. But she was here, standing beside him because that's who she was. Thank you, he said, for everything. I don't say it enough. You don't need to. I know. She smiled, and some of the tension eased from her face. Now come eat. Mrs. Weasley made shepherd's pie, and Ron's threatened to finish it all if you don't hurry. Can't have that. They walked into the burrow together, warmth and chaos and the smell of good food enveloping them. For one moment, Harry let himself forget about thrones and curses and immortal enemies. Tomorrow the war would continue. Tonight he'd eat pie with people who cared about him. It wasn't everything, but it was enough. In Devon, Daphne Greengrass sat in her darkened bedroom, examining the marks on her arms by wandlight. Potter's ring had glowed when he spoke about the throne. She'd noticed that, though she hadn't mentioned it. Power responding to sincerity. Interesting. Her whole life she'd built walls. Ice and distance and carefully cultivated intimidation. Kept people away, which kept her safe, which meant nobody saw her dying. Nobody pitied her. Nobody tried to help. But Potter hadn't tried to help. He just offered. Information, honesty, and the freedom to choose. No pressure, no manipulation, no leverage. She didn't know what to do with that. Across the hall, Astoria's light was still on. Her sister stayed up late most nights. Sleeping hurt, she'd confessed once, the curse making rest as painful as waking. They didn't talk about it anymore. What was there to say? But maybe now there was something to say. Maybe now there was an option that didn't end in early graves and family grief. Maybe. Daphne extinguished her wand and lay back in darkness. Tomorrow she'd think more clearly. Tomorrow she'd analyze Potter's offer with proper Slytherin cynicism. Tonight, for the first time in years, she let herself feel something that might have been hope. Malakar's spy watched the burrow from a safe distance, cloaked in enchantments that hid scent and sound and magical signature. The heir had returned from the Greengrass estate. Interesting development. They pulled a small mirror from their robes. Not a communication mirror like the Mudblood girl had given Potter, but something older, darker. The surface swirled with shadow before resolving into features that weren't quite human anymore. Report. The heir made contact with the Greengrass family. Both daughters are potential bonds. The curse makes them vulnerable to offers of healing. Expected. Continue monitoring. Do not interfere yet. And the Delacour woman? Being handled separately. The heir cannot be allowed to consolidate bonds. Each connection must be complicated. Poisoned. The face in the mirror smiled with borrowed lips. Patience won. Once. The spy nodded, pocketing the mirror, and settled in to watch. The burrow glowed with warmth and family, utterly unaware of the shadow at its gates. Soon, that warmth would be tested. Malakar's plans were only beginning. Chapter 2 End Chapter 3. Vila Don't Bow. Fleur's Cursebreaker credentials got them into Gringotts' restricted archives without questions, though the goblin clerk's expression suggested he was filing this visit under suspicious activities to monitor. Harry followed her through corridors that grew older and stranger the deeper they went, the walls shifting from carved stone to natural rock to something that might have been bone. "You're certain about this lead?" he asked as they descended another flight of stairs. The Avalon Concordats were stored separately from standard wizarding records. The goblins kept copies when the Ministry destroyed theirs. We do not trust human institutions to preserve inconvenient history. Fleur's wand lit their path with soft blue light. If answers exist about Malakar's origins and the throne's requirements, they will be here. And Gringotts just lets Cursebreakers access thousand-year-old documents? Gringotts lets employees with appropriate clearance access materials relevant to their work. I may have expanded the definition of relevance. Breaking rules already. I'm impressed. I learned from watching you at the Triwizard tournament. Terrible influence. Harry grinned despite himself. 2 days of working with Fleur had shown him a different person than the one he remembered, sharper, funnier, with a competitive streak that matched his own. She challenged him constantly, refused to defer to his supposed importance, and treated the throne situation as a puzzle to solve rather than a crisis to panic over. He liked her. Genuinely liked her. Not just as an ally or a potential bond, but as a person worth knowing. The throne hummed approval at that thought, which was either encouraging or creepy depending on how he looked at it. They reached the archive chamber. A circular room lined floor to ceiling with shelves holding scrolls, books, and artifacts that radiated age. A preservation enchantment kept the air cool and dry, and floating lights activated as they entered, illuminating the space in warm amber. Avalon materials are in the northeast section. Fleur moved with confidence, clearly familiar with the layout. Start with the Concordats' formal agreements between the throne and allied groups. I'll check the historical accounts for references to Malakar specifically. They split up, each pulling documents from shelves and settling at reading tables. Harry found himself surrounded by scrolls written in languages he didn't recognize, though the throne's awareness helped somehow. Meanings flickering at the edge of understanding, like words heard through water. The first Concordat he could actually read was with the Vila clans. In recognition of services rendered and bonds of friendship forged, the throne of Avalon extends to the Vila of the Western Shores the following privileges and obligations: advisory status in matters of diplomacy, protection under the throne's wards, and the right of petition directly to the king. In return, the Vila pledge their gifts of perception and truth-sensing to the throne's service, to guard against deception in the king's court and warn of threats the human eye cannot see. Signed in the 3rd year of King Aldric's reign, witnessed by Harry. Fleur's voice cut through his reading. I found something. He crossed to her table, where she'd spread a large scroll covered in cramped handwriting and what looked like diagrams. Her face was pale. Malakar wasn't just an advisor. He was the throne's keeper of secrets, responsible for protecting Avalon's most dangerous knowledge, including... She pointed to a diagram that made Harry's stomach turn. The rite of hollowing. What is it? A ritual for transferring life force between beings. The original purpose was medical, saving dying patients by sharing vitality from willing donors. But Malakar perverted it. Her finger traced lines of text. He used it to steal lives entirely, consuming other wizards' years to extend his own. The scroll estimates he's absorbed at least 200 lives over the millennium since Aldrich's death. Harry stared at the diagram. The human figure at its center, surrounded by smaller figures that seemed to be flowing into it. 200 people, drained to feed one man's immortality. Can it be stopped? Reversed. The ritual requires periodic renewal. Every few decades, Malachar needs fresh sources. If we could identify who he's currently draining. Fleur shook her head. But that's not the worst part. Look at the throne requirements section. She unrolled another portion of the scroll. Harry read, and his blood went cold. The hollowing grants extended life but not true immortality. The subject remains vulnerable to magical destruction, particularly power sources connected to the land itself. The throne of Avalon, being the nexus of Britain's ley lines, represents the only force capable of permanently ending a hollowed existence. This fact was known to Malachar before his betrayal. His elimination of King Aldrich was not merely political, it was survival. As long as the throne remained dormant, no power existed that could destroy him. He killed Aldrich because the throne could kill him, Harry said slowly. And now that the throne has awakened with you as heir. Fleur met his eyes. You are the only person alive capable of ending Malachar permanently. Which means, he'll never stop hunting me. Not until one of us is dead. The archive's ambient lights flickered. Harry's hand went to his wand, but the disturbance passed. Just magical fluctuation in the old wards. There's more. Fleur pulled another document forward. Records of Malachar's known associates. The Hollow Crown, they call themselves. And some of these names. She tapped a list. They're ministry officials. Current ministry officials. Harry scanned the names. 2 he didn't recognize. 1 he did. Helena Ashworth. Rising star in the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. He'd seen her quoted in The Prophet, advocating for stronger regulation of magical artifacts and bloodline powers. At the time, it had seemed reasonable. Now, she's been pushing for laws about unregistered magical inheritances, Harry said. I thought it was just bureaucratic overreach. Or groundwork. If Malachar can't destroy the throne through direct assault, perhaps he plans to have the ministry contain it legally. Regulate you into powerlessness. That's actually clever. Malachar has had 1,000 years to refine his strategies. We should assume everything he does is clever. Fleur began rolling up the scrolls. We need to copy these records and get them somewhere safe. Multiple somewheres. If something happens to us, nothing's going to happen. Don't be naive, Harry. Something almost happened to me 3 nights ago. Something almost happened to you in Diagon Alley. We are at war with an enemy who has centuries more experience. She fixed him with a stare that brooked no argument. We plan for failure. Always. That's how survivors survive. Harry wanted to argue, but he couldn't. She was right, and his instinct to protect through denial wouldn't help anyone. Fine. We make copies. Send them to Hermione, to Snape, to... The archive door exploded inward. Harry dove behind the nearest table, pulling Fleur with him as curses scorched the air where they'd been standing. 3 attackers poured through the doorway, gray-robed, masked, moving with the same wrong precision as the Diagon Alley assault. Found them, one shouted. Both targets confirmed. Fleur's wand was already moving. Confringo! The explosion caught the lead attacker mid-stride, throwing him backward into his companions. Harry followed with a golden stunner that dropped the second. The third adapted. Instead of charging, he conjured a shield and began casting systematically, forcing them to stay behind cover while he advanced methodically. The scrolls, Fleur hissed. We can't let them take the scrolls. Harry's mind raced. The attacker was too well shielded for direct assault, and the confined space limited their movement options. But the archive had been built by goblins, and goblins never made rooms without. There. He pointed at a small door set into the far wall, nearly invisible among the shelving. Emergency exit. Grab the documents and go. I'll hold him. Harry, just do it. He burst from cover before she could argue, wand blazing with throne-enhanced power. The attacker's shield buckled under the assault, not breaking, but straining enough to demand full attention. Harry pressed the advantage, throwing spell after spell, buying seconds while Fleur gathered the critical scrolls and made for the exit. The attacker snarled behind his mask. You can't protect them all, heir. The master will claim what's his. Tell your master to come in person next time. Harry's next spell punched through the weakened shield, catching the attacker in the chest. I'd like to meet him properly. The man crumpled. Harry spun toward the exit and found Fleur waiting, scrolls secured, wand raised to cover his retreat. I said go, and I don't take orders from 17-year-olds. She fired a curse past his shoulder. Harry heard a grunt behind him. The first attacker was recovering. Move, Potter. Now. They ran. The emergency exit dumped them into a maintenance corridor that wound through Gringotts' lower levels like a stone intestine. Fleur led, her Cursebreaker knowledge of the layout keeping them ahead of pursuit. Harry's lungs burned and his magic felt depleted, the throne's power fading as adrenaline gave way to exhaustion. How did they find us? He gasped between strides. The archives are warded against intrusion but not against tracking. If they've had 1,000 years to study Gringotts' defenses. Fleur ducked through a narrow gap between walls. Malachar probably has passages we've never discovered. Great. Fantastic. Any other cheerful news? The exit ahead leads to Nocturne Alley. Once we're in public, they won't risk open attack. They attacked Diagon Alley in broad daylight. That was shock and awe. This is targeted retrieval. Different tactics. She slowed as they approached a ladder leading up. I'll check the surface. Stay hidden until I signal. Before Harry could object, she was climbing. He pressed himself against the cold stone wall, trying to quiet his breathing, listening for pursuit. The tunnel behind them stayed silent. Either they'd lost the attackers or this was about to become a trap. 2 minutes passed. Then 3. Harry's hand tightened on his wand. A soft whistle from above, Fleur's all-clear signal. He climbed, emerging through a grate into a narrow alley reeking of old potions and something that might have been blood. Fleur stood nearby, scanning the shadows. We're clear. For now. She pulled the scrolls from her expanded pouch, checking them quickly. The documents are intact, but we've lost our access to the archives. Gringotts will lock them down after an internal breach. Worth it. We have what we need. Do we? We have historical context and a list of names. We don't have locations, current plans, or any way to predict Malachar's next move. We have more than we had this morning. Fleur looked at him strangely. You're optimistic, after everything that's happened. Optimistic or stubborn. Depends who you ask. I would say stubborn, but something in her expression softened. It's not entirely unappealing. Harry wasn't sure how to respond to that, so he changed the subject. We should get these copies made and distributed, then figure out our next step. Agreed. I know a secure location, a flat I maintain for sensitive work. We can regroup there. Lead the way. Fleur's secure flat turned out to be a cramped bedsit in Muggle London, so heavily warded that Harry's teeth ached just crossing the threshold. The space held a narrow bed, a table covered in documents, and approximately 3,000 books crammed into shelves that shouldn't have held them. Cursebreaker reference materials, Fleur said, noting his look. Some problems require extensive research. I'm starting to understand your work better. She began sorting the scrolls, separating pages for copying. Harry helped where he could, but his attention kept drifting to questions that had been building since the archive. Can I ask you something personal? Fleur's hands paused. You can ask. I may not answer. The Vila Concordat mentioned truth sensing, the ability to perceive deception. Is that why you... He stopped, reorganizing his thoughts. When we talked that first night, you said I was different, that I looked at you like a person, not a prize. Was that the truth sense? Partially. She resumed sorting, not meeting his eyes. The allure creates a specific reaction in most humans. Even those who resist it consciously show signs. Dilated pupils, elevated pulse, involuntary leaning. You showed none of these things. The throne's protection? Perhaps. Or perhaps you have simply experienced enough manipulation that your defenses are stronger than average. She finally looked at him. Either way, it was refreshing. I have not had a conversation with a man my age that didn't involve managing his reaction to my heritage since I was 14. That sounds exhausting. It is. Simple words, but weighted with years of frustration. The tournament was the worst. Boys treated me like a trophy. Girls treated me like a threat. Everyone saw the villa, and nobody saw Fleur. I started to wonder if Fleur even existed, or if I was just a collection of magical effects pretending to be a person. You exist. Harry said it without thinking, then felt foolish for stating the obvious. But Fleur smiled, small, genuine, nothing like her usual polished expressions. Thank you for saying so, even if it's simplistic. I'm a Gryffindor. Simplistic is our specialty. So I've noticed. She finished the sorting and leaned back in her chair. The truth sense tells me you're sincere, Harry Potter. You genuinely want to help people, not use them. That's rare enough that I'm still not entirely certain how to respond to it. You could try trusting me. I'm working on it. Trust is not something Vila give easily. Too many have exploited our nature over the centuries. But she met his eyes steadily. You saved my life. You're treating me as a partner rather than a prize. Those things matter. They should matter to everyone. And yet they don't, which makes you unusual. She stood, moving to a small cabinet and pulling out tea supplies. We should eat something. The copies will take time, and you look half dead. Harry's stomach growled agreement. He hadn't eaten since breakfast, and magical exertion burned calories like nothing else. Tea would be good. Food would be better. I have biscuits, and possibly some cheese that hasn't expired. Fleur rummaged through the cabinet. Cursebreaker provisions. Very glamorous. Beats starving in a tunnel. Everything beats starving in a tunnel. They ate in comfortable silence. Tea and biscuits and cheese that was only slightly questionable, while copying charms duplicated the essential documents. Harry found himself watching Fleur work, noting the precision of her movements, the way her focus sharpened when handling complex magic. You're staring, she said without looking up. Observing. There's a difference. Is there? Now she did look up, one eyebrow raised. And what have you observed? That you're really good at this. The curse breaking, the research, all of it. It's not just a job to you. No. It's... She paused, searching for words. My mother was a full Vila. Beautiful, powerful, beloved by everyone who saw her. But she never did anything. Never built anything, never solved anything. Her whole existence was being admired. Fleur's expression hardened. I wanted to be more than admired. I wanted to accomplish things that had nothing to do with how I looked. Curse-breaking gives me that. Makes sense. Does it? Most people think I'm wasting my gifts. A Vila working in dusty tombs instead of charming dignitaries at parties. Her laugh was bitter. My grandmother despairs. Your grandmother can mind her own business. Fleur blinked. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed for real. I will tell her you said so. She will either be horrified or impressed. I'll take either. The copying charms finished with a soft chime. Fleur gathered the duplicates, separating them into bundles for different recipients. Her movements had lost some of their tension, Harry noticed. The conversation had relaxed something in her. He felt it too. The ease of talking to someone who understood being judged for things beyond your control. Who knew what it meant to fight for identity against the weight of expectation. The throne hummed quietly in his awareness. Not pushing, not demanding. Just acknowledging something growing between them. The documents are ready, Fleur said, breaking his reverie. We should distribute them before Malakar's people regroup. Right? Business first. Business first. But she smiled as she said it, and the smile reached her eyes. Always. They split the distribution work. Fleur taking copies to Gringotts contacts who could store them outside normal channels. Harry returning to the burrow with the main archive for Hermione's analysis. The sun was setting by the time he apparat to the familiar boundary, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Hermione met him at the door, her expression a mixture of relief and irritation. You were supposed to check in hourly. Got distracted. Attacked in the archives. The usual. The usual? She stopped, taking in his disheveled state. Are you hurt? Just tired. Fleur got us out before things got worse. Harry handed her the document bundle. These are copies of everything we found. Malakar's origins, his vulnerability to the throne, a list of potential ministry collaborators. It's not everything, but it's enough to start building a real picture. Hermione's irritation melted into curiosity as she scanned the documents. Helena Ashworth. I've read her proposals. She's been pushing for magical inheritance registration for months. Fleur thinks it's groundwork. Legalize containment of the throne's power instead of trying to destroy it directly. That's actually brilliant strategy. If Malakar can't beat you militarily, he'll beat me bureaucratically. Yeah, we worked that out. Harry moved into the kitchen, desperate for real food. We need to get ahead of this. Figure out who we can trust in the ministry. Build opposition to Ashworth's proposals before they gain momentum. I'll start cross-referencing her public statements with the timeline of Malakar's activities. See if there's a pattern we can document. Hermione followed him, still reading. What about the Greengrasses? Have you heard back? Not yet. Snape said he'd let me know when they're ready to talk again. And Fleur? How's that going? Harry heard the careful neutrality in her voice. She's helping. We work well together. That's not what I asked. I know. He found leftover stew in the cooling cabinet and began heating it with his wand. It's complicated. She's smart and capable, and she doesn't treat me like I'm made of glass or gold. But I'm not going to push for something just because the throne wants it. That's not fair to either of us. That's remarkably mature. I have my moments. Hermione set down the documents and studied him. You seem different since the inheritance. More focused. More tired, mostly. But yeah, having a clear enemy helps. Voldemort was always this looming abstract threat. Malakar's concrete. He has plans, resources, people working for him. That's something I can actually fight. Just be careful you're fighting him and not becoming like him. What do you mean? You're building alliances, gathering power, preparing for war. Those are all necessary things. But Malakar probably started the same way 1,000 years ago. Someone convinced himself that accumulating power was justified by the threats he faced. She touched his arm. Don't lose yourself in the strategy, Harry. That's how good people become bad ones. Harry thought about that while he ate. Hermione wasn't wrong. The throne's influence was subtle but constant, always pushing him toward connections, toward power, toward choices that served the greater goal of awakening. Was he making decisions or was he being guided? Did it matter if the decisions were good ones? I'll be careful, he said finally, and I'll keep you around to tell me when I'm being an idiot. That's been my job since first year, and you're very good at it. The next morning brought unexpected visitors. Harry was helping Mrs. Weasley with breakfast, a transparent excuse to avoid thinking about throne politics for 5 minutes, when the wards chimed with an incoming arrival. He reached the door before anyone else, wand drawn, throne awareness extending to assess the threat. 2 figures stood at the property boundary. Daphne Greengrass, looking pale but composed, and beside her, smaller and frilier, Astoria. Miss Greengrass. Harry lowered his wand but didn't relax fully. Both of you. We need to talk. Daphne's voice was steady, but her eyes showed stress. Privately. Now. Come in. He led them to the orchard, away from the burrow's bustle. The morning sun filtered through apple leaves, dappling the ground with shifting patterns. Both sisters moved carefully, Astoria especially. She leaned on her sister's arm, her steps uncertain. Something happened, Harry said when they'd stopped. What? They came to our house. Daphne's composure cracked slightly. Last night, gray-robed, wearing those wrong masks. 3 of them. Harry's stomach dropped. Did they? Father drove them off. Our wards are old and strong, and he's a better duelist than people think. But they delivered a message before they left. Daphne reached into her robes and produced a folded parchment. This. Harry took the parchment. The writing was elegant, almost beautiful, in a style that felt ancient. To the daughters of the Greengrass line, your ancestors served the true throne faithfully. That service is not forgotten. We offer you what the pretender heir cannot: certain cure for your affliction, restoration of health and vitality, a place of honor in the new order. The hollow crown rewards its friends. Join us willingly, and your family will prosper under our protection. Refuse, and watch your daughters wither while the boy king plays at power he cannot control. You have until the new moon to decide. Harry read it twice, his anger building with each word. They're trying to recruit you, using the curse as leverage. Obviously. Daphne's voice was flat. The question is whether their offer is real. You're not seriously considering. I'm considering everything. She cut him off sharply. My sister is dying, Potter. Faster than me. She has maybe 2 years left without intervention. If there's even a chance these people could help her. Malachar drains life force from other wizards to fuel his immortality. That's what he does. Whatever cure he's offering, it involves stealing years from someone else. Astoria spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft but steady. That's why we're here instead of accepting. We wanted to know if you had an alternative. Harry looked at her, really looked. 15 years old, maybe 16. Pale and thin and clearly exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes and that slight tremor in her hands. Dying slowly and asking him for hope. The throne's power might help. Bonding shares magic between everyone connected, including healing enhancement. I can't promise it would cure the curse entirely, but it should slow the progression. Maybe stop it completely, if the bond is strong enough. And what do you want in return? Daphne asked. Nothing you don't want to give. The bond has to be genuine. The throne rejects anything forced or false. I'm not asking you to pledge loyalty or swear oaths or promise anything. I'm just... He struggled for words. I'm offering the chance to try. If it doesn't work, or if you decide you don't want to be part of this, that's your choice. But I'd rather you choose me than Malachar, because his help comes with a price you can't afford to pay. The sisters exchanged a look. Some communication passed between them, the shorthand of people who've shared a lifetime. Astoria should go first, Daphne said finally. She's worse off. If the bond helps her. I'm not leaving you behind, Astoria protested. We do this together or not at all. Tori, no, Daph. You've protected me my whole life. Let me be brave about something for once. Astoria turned to Harry. Can we both bond? Is that allowed? The throne needs 7. 2 of you still leaves 5 to find. Harry hesitated, then made a decision. But we shouldn't rush this. You're scared and you've just been threatened, and this is a huge commitment. Take a few days. Talk to your parents. Make sure it's really what you want. We don't have a few days. Daphne's voice was tight. Malachar gave us until the new moon. That's less than a week. Then we use the week. Let me put up additional protections on your estate. Bring in allies to help guard you. If the Hollow Crown attacks again, you'll have support. Why would you do that? We haven't bonded. We're not useful to you yet. Because you're people in danger and I can help. Harry held her gaze. That's enough reason. Something shifted in Daphne's expression. The Ice Queen mask she'd worn since arriving cracked further, showing uncertainty underneath. You mean that? She said slowly. You actually mean that? I keep trying to tell people. They keep being surprised. Maybe because it's genuinely surprising. Astoria smiled weakly. Most wizards would use this situation for leverage. You're just helping. I've had enough people try to leverage me for a lifetime. I'm not passing that on. The sisters exchanged another look. Then Daphne nodded slowly. All right, We'll take your protection. We'll use the weak to think. She straightened, some of her usual composure returning. But Potter, if this is a trick, if you're manipulating us the way everyone else has tried, then you should hex me into next century. But it's not a trick. Harry extended his hand. Allies for now. Whatever comes next, we figure out together. Daphne took his hand. Her grip was cold but firm. Allies for now. Astoria added her hand to theirs. Together. The throne pulsed warmly, acknowledging the connection forming. Not a bond. Not yet, but the foundation of one. Trust beginning to build, choices being made. It was a start. Setting up protections for Greengrass Manor took most of the day. Harry called in help. Tonks for ore expertise, Fleur for curse-breaking knowledge, Bill Weasley because he'd heard what was happening and refused to be left out. Together they reinforced the estate's existing wards, added new layers of detection and defense, and established emergency portkeys that would activate if certain threat thresholds were crossed. Marcus Greengrass watched them work with an expression that wavered between gratitude and suspicion. His wife stayed close to her daughters, hovering protectively even inside their own home. "This is more than we expected," Marcus said to Harry as the afternoon wore on. "More than we deserve, given how my family has treated yours over the years. I don't keep score that way. Perhaps you should. Politics is about favors owed and leverage held. Generosity without expectation creates vulnerability. Maybe. Or maybe it creates allies who actually want to help instead of people waiting for their chance to betray you." Marcus considered that. "You sound like Aldrich." Harry looked up sharply. "You know about him?" "The Greengrass family records go back far enough. We remember serving the throne, even if most have forgotten what that meant." Marcus's expression was unreadable. Aldrich trusted too easily. It got him killed. He trusted the wrong person. That's different from trusting at all. Is it? He trusted Malachar for 60 years. How long before one of your allies decides betrayal serves them better than loyalty? Harry didn't have an answer for that. The question haunted him as he worked, a shadow at the edge of his thoughts. Fleur found him during a break, sitting alone in the Greengrass garden, while the others coordinated inside. "Deep thoughts?" she asked, settling beside him on a stone bench. "Marcus thinks I'm making Aldrich's mistakes, trusting people who'll eventually betray me. Perhaps you are. But what's the alternative? Trust no one. Isolate yourself until Malachar picks off your allies one by one." She shook her head. "The throne requires bonds for a reason. Alone, you're vulnerable. Connected, you're strong. That's not naivety. It's strategy. What if one of those connections is compromised? Malachar had a spy close to Aldrich. He probably has spies close to me. Then we'll find them and deal with them. But we can't let paranoia prevent us from building the alliances we need." Fleur touched his arm briefly. "Trust is a risk. So is breathing. We do it anyway because the alternative is worse." That's surprisingly philosophical for a curse breaker. "I read books, sometimes ones without curses in them." She stood, offering him a hand up. "Come. The wards are almost finished, and Tonks is threatening to hex Bill if he makes one more joke about her hair color." Harry took her hand. Her skin was warm, her grip firm. Something electric passed between them, the throne's awareness, maybe, or just human chemistry. Fleur noticed. Her expression flickered, curious and guarded at once. "The connection is growing," she said quietly. "I can feel it. The pull toward something more. Is that okay?" "I don't know yet." But she didn't release his hand. "Ask me again when we're not in the middle of a war." "Fair enough." They walked back toward the manor together, hands still linked. Behind them, the sun began its descent toward evening, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. War was coming. Enemies were moving. And Harry was building something that might save them all, or might break apart at the worst possible moment. Only time would tell which. That night, Harry dreamed of the throne. He stood in the inheritance chamber, but it was different, grander, more complete, filled with light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The throne itself blazed with power, 7 symbols on its armrests glowing in different colors. And standing before it, a woman he'd never seen but somehow recognized. Silver hair, Vila features, wearing robes that belonged to another era. Harry Potter. Her voice echoed strangely. The air awakens. Who are you? I served Aldrich. I was the first of his 7, the one who showed him what the bonds could become. She smiled sadly. I died defending him the night of the betrayal. My spirit lingers here, bound to the throne I loved. Why are you showing me this? Because you need to understand what you're building. The bonds are not just power, they are pieces of yourself, extended and vulnerable. When you truly connect to someone, you give them the ability to destroy you. That is the throne's paradox. Its greatest strength is also its greatest weakness. Harry felt the weight of her words. Aldrich was destroyed by someone he bonded with? No. His 7 remained true until death. It was Malakar's poison that turned others court members, allies, people who served the throne but weren't bound to it. The woman's form flickered. Trust your bonds, Harry Potter. They will not betray you, but guard them carefully, for Malakar will try to turn them against you, and the pain of that would be worse than any curse. How do I know who to bond with? How do I know when it's real? You don't. That's the risk. That's always the risk. She began fading, her edges dissolving into light. Love anyway. Trust anyway. Build what Aldrich built, and this time make it strong enough to last. Harry woke to morning light and the distant sound of owls. The dream was already fading, but one thing remained clear in his mind. Love anyway. Trust anyway. Simple advice. Impossibly hard to follow. But he was going to try. Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. Masks and Metamorphs. Tonks tripped over the umbrella stand at Grimmauld Place for the 3rd time that week, and Harry caught her elbow before she could faceplant into the wall. That thing is cursed, she muttered, hair cycling from pink to orange to an annoyed shade of red. I swear it moves when I'm not looking. It probably does. This house hates everyone. Comforting. She straightened, brushing off her aura robes. Thanks for the catch. Moody would have let me fall and called it constant vigilance training. Moody's not here. No, he's not. Something flickered across her face. Grief, maybe, or just exhaustion. Lot of people aren't here anymore. Harry recognized that tone. He'd heard it in his own voice often enough. You okay? Fine. Always fine. That's what metamorphmagi do, right? Change our faces until we look fine. Tonks shook herself, forcing brightness back into her expression. Anyway, you called a strategy meeting. Kingsley's upstairs with the others, right? Let's go. Grimmauld Place had become their unofficial headquarters after the borough started feeling too exposed. The old Black family home was unplottable, heavily warded, and miserable enough that nobody stayed longer than necessary, which meant fewer opportunities for Malakar's spies to observe patterns. The kitchen held their core group, Kingsley Shacklebolt, looking grave and ministerial even in civilian clothes. Fleur already reviewing documents. Bill Weasley, who'd taken leave from Gringotts to help full-time. Hermione, surrounded by books and parchment. And Ron, who was eating toast and pretending not to be worried about everything. Good. Everyone's here. Harry took a seat at the head of the table. It still felt strange, leading meetings instead of being dragged to them, but the throne's influence made the position feel natural. We've got updates on 3 fronts. Hermione, start with the research. Hermione straightened her papers. I've been analyzing Helena Ashworth's proposal for magical inheritance registration. It's worse than we thought. If passed, it would require anyone with significant hereditary magical gifts to register with the Ministry, submit to evaluation, and accept appropriate oversight measures. The language is vague enough to cover almost anything, including bonded throne magic. Can she actually get it passed? Kingsley asked. She's building support. The fear angle is effective. Unregulated magical power is dangerous. The public deserves protection, that sort of thing. After Voldemort, people are receptive to restrictions on powerful individuals. Even if those individuals are trying to protect them, Harry said. Especially then. Fear doesn't discriminate. Hermione flipped to another page. The vote is scheduled for next month. If we want to stop it, we need to either discredit Ashworth or provide an alternative that addresses the same concerns without giving the Ministry control over the throne. Discrediting her might backfire, Bill said. If she's connected to Malachar, exposing that connection could make her a martyr, the brave reformer silenced by shadowy forces. Then we need the alternative. Harry looked at Kingsley. What would work? What would make people feel safe without actually compromising the throne's independence? Kingsley considered carefully. Transparency, perhaps. Public accountability measures that you control rather than the Ministry. If people see you policing yourself, they're less likely to demand external oversight. Like what, specifically? Regular public reports on how the throne's power is being used. An independent council to review major decisions. Clear limitations on what the throne can and cannot do. Kingsley spread his hands. You'd be binding yourself voluntarily, but the bindings would be your design rather than Ashworth's. That's actually clever, Fleur said. You preempt the regulation by regulating yourself. It takes away Ashworth's argument. And if Malachar's people try to infiltrate the council? Tonks asked. We choose the members carefully. People with proven loyalty and resistance to manipulation. Harry's mind was already working through possibilities. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. What about the military situation? Tonks, you've been tracking Hollow Crown movements. Tonks pulled a map from her bag and spread it on the table. Marks in various colors dotted the surface. Attacks, sightings, suspected safe houses. They're getting bolder. 3 more incidents this week, all targeting people with potential throne connections. 2 we got to in time. 1, her jaw tightened. 1 we didn't. Who? Hestia Jones. Her grandmother was apparently connected to Avalon through some kind of oath-binding tradition. Malachar's people grabbed her from her flat in Manchester. By the time we tracked the portkey signature, the trail was cold. The room went quiet. Harry felt the throne's anger rise, merging with his own. Another person taken because of what he'd inherited. Another failure to protect. We'll find her, he said. Put it on the priority list. Already there. But Harry, Tonks hesitated. We're stretched thin. Protecting known targets, investigating attacks, trying to build a picture of their operation. We need more people. Recruitment is complicated. Every new person is a potential leak. Every known target we can't cover is a potential casualty. Pick your poison. Harry rubbed his temples. The strategic puzzle was impossible. Too many vulnerabilities, too few resources, an enemy with centuries of preparation. Every solution created new problems. All right, give me a list of potential recruits. People you trust personally, not just professionally. We'll vet them carefully and bring them in slowly. Tonks nodded, making notes. What about the Greengrasses? Ron asked. Have they decided anything? Still thinking. The new moon is in 4 days, Malachar's deadline. If they haven't bonded by then, he'll probably escalate. And if they do bond? Then they'll be protected by the throne's magic and become bigger targets at the same time. Harry shrugged. There's no safe option. Just different kinds of risk. Story of our lives, Hermione muttered. The meeting continued through the afternoon. Logistics, contingencies, endless debate about tactics and priorities. By the time they broke for dinner, Harry's head was pounding and his patience was frayed. He slipped out to the back garden while the others ate, needing fresh air and silence. The Grimmauld Place garden was overgrown and gloomy, but at least it was outside. Footsteps behind him. He didn't turn. You're brooding, Tonks said, settling onto the crumbling bench beside him. I recognize the signs. Just thinking. Same thing with you. She'd shifted her hair to a subdued purple, matching the evening shadows. You take on too much, you know? The weight of the world isn't actually yours to carry alone. Feels like it sometimes. Yeah, I know that feeling. She was quiet for a moment. After Remus died, I spent months thinking I should have done more. Should have been there. Should have somehow prevented it. The guilt ate me alive. Harry looked at her. They'd never really talked about Remus. The wound too fresh, the connection too painful. How'd you get past it? I didn't. Not entirely. But I realized something. She picked at a loose thread on her sleeve. Guilt is a trap. It makes you think you're responsible for everything that goes wrong, which sounds noble but actually just makes you useless. You can't save people if you're paralyzed by what you couldn't save before. Is that what you think I am? Paralyzed? No. You're still moving, still fighting. But I see the weight on you, Harry. The way you flinch when we talk about casualties. The way you blame yourself for things that aren't your fault. She met his eyes. You're 17. You inherited a magical throne 3 weeks ago. You're not supposed to have all the answers. Nobody else is stepping up to find them. That's not true. We're all here. Fleur, Hermione, Kingsley, Bill, Ron, me. We're all trying to help. But you keep acting like you have to do everything yourself. Like trusting us to share the load is somehow weakness. Harry wanted to argue, but she had a point. He'd been handling the throne situation like he'd handled Voldemort. Assuming he was the only one who could really solve it, treating allies as helpers rather than partners. Old habits, he said finally. Bad habits. Ones that'll get you killed if you don't break them. Tonks shifted closer, her shoulder brushing his. I'm serious, Harry. You've got people who want to fight beside you. Let us. I'm trying. Try harder. But she softened the words with a small smile. That's an order, by the way. Senior Auror to Junior Throne Sitter. Is that the technical term? I'm working on better ones. Magical Monarch sounds too pretentious. Ley Line Lord has alliteration going for it. Please stop. Never. Her grin widened. That's revenge for making me attend 3 strategy meetings this week. My brain is full of logistics and I hate it. Despite everything, Harry laughed. Fair enough. They sat in comfortable silence as the sky darkened. The weight on Harry's shoulders didn't disappear, but it felt lighter somehow. Shared. Can I ask you something? He said eventually. You just did. Smartass. The metamorphmagus thing. Does it ever feel like you're not really you? Like the ability to change means there's nothing solid underneath? Tonks was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. All the time. That's the worst part, honestly. Not the accidental shifts or the way people expect you to look however they want. It's the question underneath. If I can be anyone, am I actually anyone? That sounds exhausting. It is. Remus helped, actually. He saw through the changes. Not just literally. I mean, he saw me, the real me, whoever that is. When he looked at me, I felt like I existed. Her hair flickered through several colors before settling on its natural brown. I haven't felt that way since he died. Harry understood. The loneliness of being seen only for what you could do, never for who you were. He'd lived with it his entire life. The boy who lived, the chosen one, the weapon against darkness. Identities imposed from outside, leaving no room for the person underneath. I see you, he said quietly, for whatever that's worth. Tonks turned to look at him. Her eyes searched his face, looking for deception or manipulation. She found neither. Yeah, she said finally. I think you do. The throne pulsed gently in Harry's chest. Recognition, connection forming, not through grand gestures but through simple honesty between 2 people who understood isolation. This is dangerous, Tonks said. I know. I'm 8 years older than you. I know that too. And we're in the middle of a war against an immortal dark wizard. The timing is terrible. Noted. She laughed, shaking her head. You're impossible. I've been told. Tonks stood, brushing off her robes. Her hair had shifted to a warm pink. The color Harry had learned meant she was actually happy, not just performing happiness. I'm not committing to anything, she said. This bond thing, the throne requirements, I need to understand it better before I make any decisions. That's fair. But I'm not running away either. We'll see where this goes. She held out her hand. Partners, for now? Harry took it. Partners. Her grip was warm and strong. When she released him, she was smiling. Come on, Junior Throne Sitter. Dinner's probably cold by now, but Mrs. Weasley will reheat it if we look pathetic enough. I can do pathetic. I've noticed. The attack came 2 days later. Harry was at Grimmauld Place, reviewing Hermione's latest analysis of Ashworth's political support, when his scar, no, not his scar, the throne's warning system, flared with urgent heat. He was moving before he consciously registered the threat. Everyone down. The front door exploded inward. Gray-robed figures poured through, wands blazing. Harry's shield caught the first volley of curses, golden light flaring against dark magic. Contact! Tonks had her wand up, firing back. At least 6 of them. More at the rear. Bill shouted from somewhere deeper in the house. Harry's mind raced through options. Grimmauld Place's wards should have stopped intruders, which meant they'd been breached or bypassed somehow. Spy, his instincts screamed. Someone gave them access. No time to worry about that now. He advanced into the attackers, throne magic surging through his wand. Each spell hit harder than it should, golden light tearing through shields and scattering opponents. 2 dropped in the first exchange. A third managed to block, then crumpled under Tonks's follow-up hex. They're trying to reach the basement. Hermione's voice, sharp with fear. The ward stones. Of course, the ward stones anchored Grimmauld Place's protections. Destroy them and the house became vulnerable to anything. Harry sprinted for the basement stairs. An attacker stepped into his path. Harry didn't slow, just blasted through the man's defenses with raw power and kept moving. Behind him, he heard the sounds of ongoing battle, shouts, explosions, the crash of breaking furniture. The basement was cold and damp, lit by the faint glow of ward stones arranged in a circle at its center. 2 more gray-robed figures stood among them, working some kind of ritual that made Harry's teeth ache. Stop! They didn't stop. One kept working while the other turned to face him, wand raised. The duel was brief and brutal. Harry's throne-enhanced magic overwhelmed the attacker's defenses in seconds. But those seconds were enough. The ritual reached completion. The ward stones shattered. Harry felt it like a physical blow, the house's protections collapsing, leaving them exposed to whatever else Malachar had prepared. And Malachar had definitely prepared something, because a new presence was pushing against the property boundary. Something powerful. Something hungry. Everyone out. Harry screamed up the stairs. The wards are down. Get out now. He grabbed the fallen ritualist and dragged him toward the exit. They needed information about Malachar's plans, his resources, his spies. The prisoner was valuable. The basement ceiling groaned. Dust rained down. Whatever was coming, it was coming fast. Harry hit the stairs running, hauling the unconscious attacker with levitation magic. He emerged into chaos, the remaining Hollow Crown soldiers retreating through the blasted front door, his allies regrouping near the back exit. Go, go, go! Tonks was shoving people toward the apparition point. Move! Harry made it outside just as Grimmauld Place began to collapse. Not physically, the structure remained standing, but magically. He could see it happening, darkness seeping from somewhere below, spreading through the building's foundations like poison through veins. What is that? Hermione gasped. Nothing good. Harry pushed them further from the property. Everyone apparate. Now, rendezvous at the secondary location. They vanished one by one. Harry went last, taking a final look at Grimmauld Place as it fell completely under Malachar's corruption. Sirius's house. The last connection to his godfather. Gone. He apparat away before the darkness could reach him. The secondary location was a safe house Fleur had arranged. A flat in Dublin, anonymous and warded, far enough from Britain that hopefully the Hollow Crown wouldn't find them immediately. They gathered in the cramped living room, battered and shaken. Bill had a gash on his forehead. Hermione's hands were trembling. Ron looked like he wanted to hit something, and their prisoner sat bound in the corner, slowly regaining consciousness. Is everyone all right? Harry did a quick head count. All present. No casualties. We're alive. Tonks's voice was tight, but they knew exactly where to hit us. The ward stones, the timing, this wasn't random. They had inside information. A spy, Kingsley said heavily. Someone's been feeding them intelligence. The word hung in the air, poisonous. They'd all been thinking it, but saying it aloud made it real. "We need to figure out who," Harry said. "And fast, before they can compromise anything else. The prisoner might know something." Bill nodded toward the bound man. "Want me to question him?" "Not yet. Let him wake up fully first. Confused prisoners give confused answers." Harry moved to the window, staring out at Dublin's evening streets. His mind was racing through possibilities: who had access to Grimmauld Place, who knew about the Wardstone locations, who could have passed information to Malakar's people. The list was shorter than he'd like, and every name on it was someone he trusted. Tonks appeared beside him. "You're thinking about the spy." "Hard not to. It's not me." "I know." "Do you?" "Because I've got means, motive, and opportunity. I knew about the safe house. I've been close to all the planning." She met his eyes. "If you suspected me, I wouldn't blame you. The throne would tell me if you were lying. It hasn't." Harry shook his head. "Besides, you just spent the last hour fighting to protect us. If you were the spy, you would have let them win. Unless I'm playing a longer game." "Are you?" "No. But the point is, you can't know for certain. Not about me, not about anyone. That's what Malakar's counting on. Paranoia tearing us apart." Harry thought about that. The spy could be anyone. Every conversation was potentially compromised. Every plan was potentially known. The poison of suspicion could destroy them more thoroughly than any attack. "We don't play the paranoia game," he said finally. "We investigate carefully, we take precautions, but we don't stop trusting each other." That's what he wants. "And if the spy is someone close? Someone we've been confiding in? Then we deal with it when we find them. But until we have proof, we assume everyone's on our side." Harry turned from the window. "Call it naive if you want. I'd rather be naive and effective than paranoid and paralyzed." Tonks studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "You're getting better at this. The leadership thing. Practice. Lots of terrible practice. Could be worse. You could be bad at it." The prisoner groaned, stirring. Harry turned toward him, compartmentalizing the spy problem for later. Right now, they had a source of information. Time to use it. The interrogation took 3 hours. The prisoner's name was Callum Bright, a ministry clerk who'd been recruited by the Hollow Crown 5 years ago. He didn't know Malakar personally, had never seen the man's face. But he knew pieces of the operation, fragments that combined with other intelligence to paint a clearer picture. "They're planning something big," Callum said, voice ragged from truth serum and magical pressure. "The new moon is not just a deadline for the Greengrass girls. It's a ritual date. Malakar needs power for something, I don't know what, and he's gathering it from the ley lines. That's why they've been targeting junction points." "Junction points?" Hermione leaned forward. "You mean places where multiple ley lines intersect?" "Yeah. Stonehenge, Glastonbury, some others. They've been setting up, I don't know, anchors? Magical devices that tap into the flow. When the new moon hits, they activate." Harry's blood went cold. "What happens when they activate?" "I don't know. Something with the throne, I think. A way to access its power without bonding." Callum's eyes were glazed. The serum forcing honesty he'd rather not give. "Malakar's been planning this for centuries. All of it, the political maneuvering, the attacks, recruiting people like me. It's all leading to the new moon. How do we stop it?" "I don't know. I'm just a clerk. They told me what I needed to know. Nothing more." Harry sat back, processing. The picture was clearer now, but no less dire. Malakar wasn't just hunting potential bonds. He was building toward something, using the ley lines for a purpose they didn't yet understand. And the new moon was in 2 days. "We need to check those junction points," he said. "Find the anchors. Disable them." "That could be exactly what he wants," Kingsley warned. "Draw us out, spread us thin, then strike somewhere we're not protecting." "Maybe. But if we do nothing, whatever he's planning happens unopposed." Harry stood, pacing. "We split up. Teams to each known junction point, looking for the devices. Everyone stays in communication. If anyone finds something, They report immediately, no heroics. And if Malakar attacks while we're scattered? Then we respond and adapt. We're not going to win this by being defensive. Harry looked around the room at his allies. Battered, tired, but still fighting. We've been reacting to his moves since this started. Time to make him react to ours. The teams deployed at dawn. Harry took Stonehenge himself, bringing Tonks as backup. The ancient stones loomed against the gray morning sky, radiating the kind of primal magic that made his throne sense hum with recognition. "This place is old," Tonks murmured. "Really old. Older than Hogwarts, older than the Ministry. I can feel it. The throne was built to work with places like this. Nexus points where wild magic pools." Harry moved among the stones, extending his senses. If Malakar's device is here, it'll be hidden well. They searched for an hour, checking every stone, every shadow, every patch of ground that felt slightly wrong. Nothing. Either the device wasn't here, or it was concealed beyond their ability to detect. Then Harry's mirror buzzed. "Harry!" Hermione's voice, tight with excitement. "Glastonbury team found something. Bill's examining it now. Some kind of crystalline structure buried under the Tor. It's drawing power from the ley lines, just like Callum described. Can they disable it?" "Working on it. But Harry, the magic is complex. Bill says it'll take hours to unravel safely. If we try to rush, it could trigger early." "Yeah, I understand." Harry paced between the standing stones. "Keep working." He ended the connection and turned to Tonks. "Glastonbury's positive. Maybe we got lucky and Malakar only set up one device." "You don't believe that?" "No, I don't." He resumed searching more urgently now. "There has to be something here. This is the biggest junction point in Britain. If he's tapping ley lines, he wouldn't skip Stonehenge. Unless that's what he wants us to think. Keep us searching here while the real action happens elsewhere." "Also possible. But I can't just—" Harry stopped. The throne's awareness had caught something. Faint, almost imperceptible, but definitely there. "Wait!" He knelt, pressing his palm against the earth. Power flowed through his connection to the ley lines, following them deeper, tracing their paths through the ground beneath the ancient stones. There, a knot of foreign magic, twisted into the natural flow like a parasite into a vein. Not buried under the ground, buried in it, woven into the ley line itself. "Found it." Harry's voice was grim. "It's not a device we can remove. It's been integrated into the line directly. Malakar must have placed it years ago, maybe decades. It's been growing ever since. Can you disconnect it?" "I don't know. Maybe with the throne's full power. But," he shook his head, "I don't have that yet. Not enough bonds." "Then we improvise." Tonks moved to stand beside him. "You're connected to the ley lines, right? The throne gives you influence over them. Some. Not full control, but then redirect them. If you can't cut the parasite out, route the power around it. Make it useless." Harry stared at her. "That's actually brilliant. I have my moments." She grinned, but her eyes were serious. "Can you do it?" "I don't know. I've never tried anything like this. Only one way to find out." Harry took a breath. Then he plunged his awareness into the ley lines. It was like diving into a river of light. Power surrounded him, vast and ancient and wild. The throne's connection was his lifeline, keeping him anchored while he navigated the flow. He found the parasitic magic quickly. A dark blot against the brilliant current, drawing power toward some distant purpose. Malakar's anchor, waiting to activate. Redirecting the flow around it was harder than he'd expected. The ley lines had patterns, natural paths they'd followed for millennia. Changing those patterns felt like trying to reroute a river with his bare hands. But he pushed. Slowly, painstakingly, he created new channels, diverting the raw magic away from Malakar's corruption. The anchor dimmed as its power source dried up. It wasn't destroyed, but it was neutralized, at least for now. Harry surfaced gasping, his whole body trembling with exhaustion. Tonks caught him as his knees buckled. "Did it work?" "I think so. The anchor's still there, but it's not getting power anymore. He sagged against her. That was intense. You look half dead. Feel worse than that. But he managed a weak smile. Worth it, though. One down. Tonks's mirror buzzed. She answered, listened, and her expression shifted. That was Bill. They disabled the Glastonbury device. Took some damage, but nothing permanent. She helped Harry to a sitting position. 2 junction points neutralized. How many more did Callum mention? At least 3. Maybe more. Harry forced himself to focus despite the exhaustion. We need to check them all before the new moon. You need to rest before you collapse. I can rest after we've stopped Malakar's ritual. You can rest now, because you're useless to everyone if you burn yourself out. Tonks's voice was firm. We've got other teams, other people who can handle this. Let them. Harry wanted to argue. The urgency was still there, the need to keep moving, keep acting. But his body was screaming for rest, and Tonks wasn't wrong. Fine. 2 hours. Then we move on the next target. 3 hours. And you'll eat something. Negotiating with a senior or. Not my smartest move. No. But I'll allow it. She pulled him to his feet, steadying him with an arm around his waist. Come on, hero. Let's find somewhere you can pass out without causing a scene. He slept for 4 hours instead of 3. Tonks had apparently decided his protests were merely suggestions. When he woke, it was to the smell of food and the sound of quiet conversation. They'd found a small inn near Amesbury, Muggle run and anonymous. Tonks sat by the window, watching the street while she talked quietly into her mirror. She glanced over when Harry stirred. He's up. Yeah, I'll tell him. Keep us posted. She ended the call and moved to the bed. How do you feel? Like someone used my brain as a quaffle. Harry sat up slowly. What did I miss? 3rd junction point neutralized. 4th still being worked on. We're making progress. She handed him a plate of sandwiches. Eat. You burned through a lot of energy. Harry ate mechanically, his mind already returning to strategy. What about the spy situation? Any leads? Hermione's been analyzing communication patterns, trying to figure out how information got out. She's got some theories, but nothing concrete. And the green grasses? The new moon deadline is tomorrow. They sent a message. They want to talk. Tonight, if possible. Harry set down the plate. They've decided? Sounds like it. Tonks's expression was carefully neutral. Both of them, apparently. Is that okay? With you? What do you mean? The bonding thing. If they join, that's 2 more connections. I know we talked about not committing to anything, but… Harry. Tonks held up a hand, stopping him. I told you I needed to understand the bond before making decisions. I've been researching while you slept, talking to Fleur about how it feels from her side. And it's not what I expected. The bond isn't possession or control. It's more like… She searched for words. A resonance. Your emotions echo in the bonded witches, and there's in you. Not overwhelming, not replacing your own feelings. Just adding to them. Fleur told you this? Fleur told me she can feel your determination even from Dublin. Your stubbornness, your guilt, your hope. She said it's like having a 6th sense specifically tuned to you. Tonks smiled slightly. She also said you radiate protective instincts like a furnace, which is apparently very reassuring during dangerous situations. Harry felt his face heat. I didn't realize the connection was that strong already. It grows with time, apparently, and trust. Tonks moved to sit on the bed's edge. I've spent my life being able to change everything about myself except what I feel. The idea of sharing emotions with someone, of having someone feel what I feel, without the masks. She took a breath. It's terrifying, but also maybe what I've needed. So you're saying… I'm saying I'm open to it. Not committing yet, not making promises. But I'm not running away either. She met his eyes. If this goes where I think it's going, I want to be part of it. Whatever that looks like. Harry didn't know what to say. The moment felt significant. A threshold being crossed, a connection deepening beyond strategy and alliance. Okay, he said finally. Then let's see where it goes. Tonks smiled, real and warm. The kind of expression Harry was learning was rare for her. Yeah, let's. They met the Greengrass sisters at the Fourth Junction Point, a hill fort in Wales that had once been a center of druidic practice. Bill's team was still working on neutralizing Malakar's anchor there, the air crackling with barely contained magical energy. Daphne and Astoria arrived by Port Key, both looking pale but resolved. They'd brought their father, which surprised Harry until he saw Marcus Greengrass's expression. Not suspicious anymore, but grimly supportive. "We've made our decision," Daphne said without preamble. "Both of us. We want to bond. Are you sure? Once it's done." "We're sure." Astoria stepped forward. She looked better than she had at their last meeting. Still fragile, but with a spark of determination in her eyes. "Malakar's people have been circling our estate, testing the new wards, probing for weaknesses. It's only a matter of time before they break through. The curse is also accelerating," Daphne added. "Whatever Malakar's ritual is doing to the ley lines, it's affecting us. Our condition has worsened significantly in the past 2 days." Harry's stomach dropped. The anchors are draining magical energy from the lines. If the curse is tied to that energy somehow, then stopping Malakar helps us either way. Daphne's jaw was set. "We're not doing this just to save ourselves. We're doing it because it's the right thing. The throne is supposed to protect Britain, and Britain includes us." Harry looked at them. These two young women who'd spent their lives dealing with a slow death sentence, now standing before him offering to bind themselves to his fate. The courage it took, the trust required, was staggering. "Okay," he said quietly. "Let's do this." The bonding was different from what Harry expected. He'd imagined some kind of ritual, words spoken, magic exchanged, formal and ceremonial. Instead, it was almost anticlimactic. He took Daphne's hand first. The throne's magic rose instantly, reaching toward her like recognition rather than connection. He felt her fear, her hope, her desperate need for something to believe in. And beneath all that, something simpler, curiosity about who he really was underneath the legend. "I see you," he said quietly, the same words he'd said to Tonks. "The real you." Daphne's breath caught. The magic clicked into place, and suddenly she was there in his awareness. Not intrusively, not overwhelming, just present. A new perspective he could access, a new person whose emotions resonated with his own. The dark traces of the curse were visible too, twisting through her magical core like thorny vines. The throne's power reached toward them, began unraveling them thread by thread. Daphne gasped. "I can feel it. The curse, it's weakening. The bond is sharing the throne's healing." Harry released her hand gently. "It'll take time to cure completely, but the progression should stop." Astoria stepped forward before he could say more. Her hand in his felt even more fragile than Daphne's, her magical core more damaged by the curse's long assault. But when the bond formed, Harry felt her strength. Not physical, Astoria had never been physically strong. This was a different kind of power. Resilience, endurance, the quiet determination to keep fighting despite everything. "Hello?" she said softly, wonder in her voice. "I can feel you. And Daphne. And..." She turned toward Tonks, who stood nearby watching. "There's a potential there. Almost connected, but not quite." "That's Tonks." Harry glanced at the oar. "We've been figuring things out. It's beautiful." Astoria smiled, the first genuine smile Harry had seen from her. "The web you're building. It's beautiful." The curse was already retreating in her as well, the throne's magic attacking the dark threads with even more intensity than it had in Daphne. Perhaps because Astoria's need was greater, or perhaps because the bond had grown stronger with the second connection. Either way, both Greengrass sisters stood before him with color returning to their cheeks and hope in their eyes. "Thank you," Daphne said. The Ice Queen mask was gone entirely now, replaced by something vulnerable and grateful. "Thank you. Thank me after we stop Malakar. This isn't over yet." "No." She squeezed his hand once before releasing it. "But now we can actually fight." That's more than we had before. The new moon rose over Britain with a cold silver light that felt wrong against Harry's senses. He stood on the Welsh hilltop, surrounded by his allies, watching the sky and waiting for whatever Malachar had planned. They'd neutralized 5 junction points. 2 more remained uncertain. Teams still working, the magical interference growing stronger as midnight approached. If any anchors remained active when the ritual peaked, something's happening. Fleur's voice cut through his thoughts. She'd arrived an hour ago, fresh from helping secure the Glastonbury site. Her Vila senses were on full alert. The ley lines are shifting. Power is moving toward somewhere. Harry extended his throne awareness. She was right. The natural flow of magic across Britain was changing, being pulled toward a central point. London. The pull was coming from London. He's there. Harry's voice was grim. Malachar's in London. The junction points were distractions. He only needed to weaken our hold on the ley lines enough to do whatever he's doing. Then we go to London. Tonks was already pulling out her emergency portkey. Now. We don't know what we're walking into, and we won't know by standing here. She met his eyes. This is it, Harry. Whatever he's planning peaks tonight. We stop it now or we don't stop it at all. Harry looked at his assembled allies. Fleur, fierce and ready. The Greengrass sisters, newly bonded and burning to prove themselves. Tonks, her hair a determined red. Bill, battered but unbroken. Ron and Hermione, who'd followed him through so much already. Not everyone. Kingsley was coordinating other teams. More allies were scattered across the country. But this was the core. The people who'd fight beside him no matter what. All right, he said. Let's end this. They activated the portkey together, hurtling through space toward whatever Malachar had prepared. Whatever happened next, they'd face it as one. Chapter 4 End Chapter 5. The last bones they landed in chaos. The portkey dumped them in Trafalgar Square, and for a moment Harry couldn't process what he was seeing. The famous plaza had been transformed into a battlefield. Ministry Aurors fighting grey-robed hollow-crowned soldiers, civilians fleeing in every direction, and at the center of it all, a column of dark light shooting up from somewhere beneath the streets. What the hell? Ron's voice cracked. This is supposed to be Muggle London. The statue's already broken. Hermione pointed toward the fleeing crowds. Muggles and wizards mixed together, all running from the same nightmare. Whatever Malachar's doing, he doesn't care who sees anymore. Harry's throne sense was screaming. The ley lines beneath London were being torn apart, their power feeding into that dark column like blood into a wound. If it continued much longer, the magical foundation of the entire city would collapse. We need to get underground, he said. That's where the ritual is happening. Tube station. Tonks pointed toward a nearby entrance. Charing Cross is right there. If there's something beneath the streets, that's our access. They fought their way across the square, Harry's golden spells clearing a path through hollow-crowned soldiers who tried to stop them. Fleur and Bill guarded the flanks. The Greengrass sisters moved in the center, still adapting to their new bond-enhanced magic but already showing increased power in their casting. The tube station was abandoned, emergency lights flickering in the gloom. They descended the frozen escalators at a run, following the pull of corrupted magic deeper into the earth. The ley line nexus under London is ancient, Hermione gasped as they ran. Pre-Roman, maybe older, if Malachar's tapping into it directly. He's got 1,000 years of knowledge about how to do exactly that. Harry's senses led them down a maintenance corridor, then through a door that shouldn't have existed into tunnels that definitely weren't part of any official map. He's been waiting for this, planning every detail. The tunnels opened into a vast underground chamber. Natural cave expanded by magic, lit by the dark column that rose from a ritual circle at its center. And standing within that circle, arms raised, face transformed by power and madness, was Malachar Vane. He looked wrong. His body was human-shaped, but the proportions were off. Skin stretched too tight over bones that didn't quite fit. His eyes were pits of absolute darkness, and when he smiled at Harry's arrival, his teeth were too sharp and too numerous. The heir arrives. Malakar's voice echoed strangely, as if multiple people were speaking at once. I wondered if you'd understand in time. Most wouldn't have. Step away from the ritual. Harry raised his wand, throne magic already gathering. Whatever you're doing, it ends now. Ends? No, boy. It begins. Malakar spread his arms wider. Do you know what the throne really is? What it was made to do? Protect Britain. Protect. Malakar laughed. A terrible sound. The throne was made to rule, to channel the ley lines into whoever sits upon it, granting power over life and death itself. The guardianship was a lie the kings told themselves, a way to feel noble about absolute dominion. His dark eyes fixed on Harry. I served Aldrich for 60 years. I watched him waste that power on protection and healing and other pathetic uses. When I should have. You murdered him because he wouldn't let you use the throne as a weapon. I murdered him because he was weak, and because I wanted what was rightfully mine. Malakar gestured at the ritual circle. This will give me that. A way to bond with the throne without the requirement of genuine connection. Without vulnerability. That's impossible. The throne rejects forced bonds. The throne rejects bonds through humans. Malakar's smile widened. But the ley lines are not human. I am bonding with the land itself, bypassing your precious emotional requirements entirely. When the ritual completes, I will have the throne's power without any of its constraints. Harry felt the truth of it through his connection to the ley lines. Malakar's ritual was working, slowly, imperfectly, but working. The dark magic was forcing a link between him and the land's magical foundation, creating a bond that wasn't about trust or connection but about raw domination. If it completed, Malakar would have access to power that rivaled or exceeded the throne's, and he'd have no limits on how he used it. We have to stop the ritual, Harry said. Now. Spread out. Tonks was already moving. Attack from multiple angles. Don't let him focus on any one of us. They fanned across the chamber, wands blazing. Malakar deflected the first volley with contemptuous ease, dark shields absorbing golden light and aura hexes alike. But the attacks were distracting. Harry could see the ritual circle flickering slightly, the interference disrupting Malakar's concentration. More pressure. Bill's curse-breaking expertise showed in his casting. Targeted strikes at the ritual's structural weak points. The circle's not stable. It doesn't need to be stable. Malakar's counterattack came without warning. A wave of darkness that swept across the chamber, throwing everyone back. It only needs to complete. Harry crashed into the cave wall, pain exploding through his shoulder. Through the bond, he felt the Greengrass sisters' fear and Fleur's determination and Tonks's fury. The connection steadied him, gave him strength to push himself upright. The ritual was accelerating. The dark column burned brighter, and Malakar's form began changing further, becoming less human, more like something that had merely worn humanity as a disguise. Harry! Hermione had scrambled to his side, bleeding from a cut on her forehead. The ley lines, can you reach them? Disrupt the connection like you did at Stonehenge. I can try. But even as he said it, Harry doubted. The Stonehenge anchor had been a parasite on the ley lines. This was something deeper. Malakar wasn't just drawing power, he was becoming part of the network. Severing the connection might not be possible without severing the ley lines themselves. Unless, the bonds, Harry said suddenly. The throne bonds. They connect me to the ley lines too. If I can strengthen those connections, make them more powerful than Malakar's forced link, you'd need more bonds. Hermione's eyes widened. The throne requires 7. You only have 3. Harry looked across the chamber at his bonded allies. Fleur, Daphne, Astoria. All fighting desperately against Malakar's darkness. I need for more. Harry, you can't just bond with people in the middle of... I know. His mind raced through options. Tonks was willing but uncommitted. Hermione had never expressed interest. There was no time for careful consideration, no opportunity for the trust-building the throne required. The ritual's light intensified. Malakar's transformation continued. They were out of time. Susan Bones had been on the surface, fighting alongside Kingsley's Auror squad, when she felt the pull. It wasn't magical exactly, more like instinct, a certainty that she needed to be somewhere else, underground. Now, she'd learned to trust those instincts. Her family had been truth seekers for generations, and while Susan had never developed the gift as fully as her ancestors, she could recognize when something important was happening. "I have to go," she told Kingsley, already moving toward the tube entrance. "Bones, wait." She didn't wait. The pull was too strong, too urgent. She plunged into the tunnels, following a path she'd never walked but somehow knew. The chamber opened before her like a wound in the earth. She saw Harry Potter at its center, surrounded by allies, facing down something that used to be human. She saw the dark ritual, felt its wrongness against her truth sense. And she understood, in a flash of inherited memory, exactly what was at stake. The throne of Avalon, the ley lines, the future of magical Britain, and Harry Potter standing against it all with not enough power to win. Susan drew her wand and joined the fight. Harry saw Susan enter the chamber and felt the throne's recognition spike. Another potential bond, the Bones bloodline truth seekers who'd served Avalon's judicial system. Her timing was impossible and perfect and exactly what he needed. "Susan." He fought toward her, golden shields deflecting Malakar's attacks. "We need to bond. Now." "What?" She was casting steadily, her hexes surprisingly powerful for someone her age. "Potter, this really isn't the time." "It's exactly the time." He reached her, grabbing her arm. "The throne needs more bonds to stop him. You're a potential, I can feel it. But we have to connect now. Before the terrifying dark ritual completes." Susan's laugh was slightly hysterical. "Yeah, I noticed that part. Do you trust me?" "I don't know. We've barely spoken since 5th year." "Then trust your instincts. Trust whatever brought you down here." Harry held her gaze. "I'm not asking you to marry me or pledge eternal loyalty. I'm asking you to help me stop that thing from destroying everything we care about. That's it. Everything else we figure out later." Susan's eyes searched his face. Her truth sense was working. He could feel it probing him, looking for deception. She found none. "Fine," she said. "Do it. Whatever it takes." Harry reached for the bond, and it formed instantly, faster than any of the others. Susan's connection was raw and desperate and absolutely genuine. She didn't love him, might not even like him particularly, but she trusted him to fight for what was right. And that was enough. Power surged through Harry. The throne's presence in his mind strengthened noticeably, and he felt the ley lines more clearly, their paths and flows and the dark corruption Malakar was forcing into them. For bonds now, still not enough, but closer. Across the chamber, Tonks saw what had happened. Saw the magic flowing between Harry and Susan, the strengthening of his power. She understood what it meant, and she made a choice. Tonks had spent her life changing. Her face, her hair, her body, shifting to meet expectations, to fit situations, to hide from herself. The only constant had been uncertainty about who she really was underneath all the masks. Watching Harry bond with Susan, she felt something settle inside her. This wasn't about romance or attraction or any of the complicated feelings she'd been sorting through. This was about something simpler. She believed in what Harry was trying to do. She wanted to help him do it. And she was tired, so tired, of holding back from connections that might actually matter. She fought her way toward him, blasting a path through the shadows Malakar kept summoning. Harry saw her coming and opened his hand, understanding already forming on his face. "You're sure?" he asked. "No, but I'm done waiting until I'm sure." She grabbed his hand. "Let's do this." The bond snapped into place like a missing piece finding its socket. Tonks gasped at the sensation. Suddenly she wasn't alone in her head anymore. Harry was there, his emotions resonating alongside hers. Determination, fear, hope, and beneath it all, a rock-solid certainty about who he was and what he was fighting for. She'd spent years looking for that kind of certainty. Now she could feel it directly, borrowed from someone who'd earned it through suffering she couldn't imagine. "Thank you," Harry said quietly. "Thank me after we win." 5 bonds. The throne's power had nearly doubled. Harry could feel the ley lines like extensions of his own nerves, could sense exactly where Malakar's corruption was spreading and how to counter it. But Malakar felt it too. Impressive. The thing in the ritual circle turned to face Harry directly. Its transformation was nearly complete now. Something ancient and terrible wearing human skin like a poorly fitted suit. "You found more vessels. But it won't matter. I only need minutes more." "You don't have minutes." Harry raised his wand, and gold light blazed around him. Brighter than before, fed by 5 bonds instead of 3. "You have seconds." He attacked. The battle that followed would become legend. Harry poured throne magic into his assault, golden fire crashing against Malakar's darkness. The two powers met and ground against each other, light and shadow locked in stalemate. But Harry wasn't alone. Fleur added her magic to his, Vila fire merging with throne gold. Daphne and Astoria contributed their newly enhanced power. The curse damage that had weakened them now healed enough to fight. Susan's truth magic cut through Malakar's deceptions, revealing weak points in his defense. And Tonks did something unexpected. She shifted. Not her appearance, her magic. The metamorphmagus gift that had always felt like a curse suddenly became something else. She didn't just change how she looked. She changed how her power flowed, adapting it moment by moment to fill gaps in Harry's assault. "I didn't know you could do that," Harry gasped. "Neither did I." The combined attack finally broke through Malakar's shields. Golden light struck the ritual circle, disrupting the careful geometries that powered the dark bonding. The column of darkness flickered. Malakar screamed, a sound that didn't belong in any human throat. "No, I've waited 1,000 years. And you'll wait forever." Harry pressed the advantage, driving more power into his assault. The ley lines responded, their natural flow reasserting against Malakar's corruption. "You can't force the throne. It was never meant to be forced." "Then I'll destroy it. If I can't have the power, no one will." Malakar's form began unraveling, the stolen life force that sustained him destabilizing as his ritual failed. But instead of dying, he was channeling that energy into something else. A last desperate attack aimed not at Harry but at the ley line nexus itself. If he couldn't bond with the land's magic, he would burn it out entirely. "He's going to collapse the network," Hermione shouted. "Harry, if the nexus fails, every magical ward in London would fall. Every enchanted building, every hidden space, every protection built over centuries. The devastation would be catastrophic." Harry made an instant decision. "Everyone out. Now." "We're not leaving you," Fleur started. "I'm not asking." He shoved her toward the exit, the throne's power carrying the force. "I have to contain this. The bonds will protect you, but only if you're not in the blast radius." "Harry," Tonks's voice was agonized. "Go. Trust me." They went, not willingly. He could feel their resistance through the bonds, their desperate desire to stay, but they went, because they trusted him. Harry turned to face Malakar alone. The ancient wizard's dissolution was accelerating, dark energy pouring from him toward the ley line nexus. His face had lost all pretense of humanity, becoming something that existed only to destroy. "You think you've won," Malakar hissed. "You think stopping my ritual means anything. But I was never the only threat. I was just the one you could see." "What are you talking about?" "The sleeper, boy. The thing that waits below." Malakar laughed as his body continued breaking apart. "I spent 1,000 years preparing to claim the throne before it awakens. Now that I've failed, nothing stands between it and the surface. You've doomed everyone by stopping me." "You're lying." "Am I?" "Use your precious throne sense. Look deeper. See what slumbers beneath Britain's roots." Harry didn't want to. Every instinct screamed that this was a trick, a final manipulation by a dying monster. But he couldn't afford to ignore a potential threat. He reached through the ley lines, extending his awareness deeper than he'd ever gone before. past the nexus, past the ancient foundations, into the bedrock of the island itself. And he felt it. Something vast. Something old. Something that made Malachar seem like a firefly compared to the sun. Sleeping, for now, but stirring. What is that? Harry breathed. The reason Avalon was built. The reason the throne was created. The reason the 7 bonds were required. Malachar's form had become barely visible, a shadow dispersing into darkness. You thought the throne was made to protect Britain from human threats. Fool. It was made to hold the cage. And then he was gone, his stolen centuries finally catching up, leaving Harry alone with the weight of terrible knowledge. The ley line collapse was still building. Harry could feel the pressure, the imminent release of destructive energy. He had seconds to act. He didn't try to stop it. Instead, he redirected it. The throne's power, amplified by 5 bonds, flowed through him into the Nexus. He couldn't prevent Malachar's final attack, but he could channel it, send it somewhere it wouldn't destroy London's magical infrastructure. The energy rushed through him like lightning through a rod. Pain beyond anything he'd experienced. Even the Cruciatus couldn't compare. His body was a conduit for forces that should have annihilated him. But the bonds held. Fleur and Daphne and Astoria and Susan and Tonks, their connections to him providing anchors that kept him from being swept away entirely. He felt their fear and their strength, their determination not to let him face this alone even from a distance. The energy discharged into the sky above London, a pillar of mixed light and darkness that split the clouds and was seen for miles. The Statute of Secrecy died in that moment, killed by a display of magic too massive to hide or explain away. Harry collapsed as the last of the power drained through him. He was alive, barely, and the thing beneath Britain slept on, unaware that its cage was now slightly weaker than before. He woke in St. Mungo's. The room was private, heavily warded, and occupied by more people than a hospital room should hold. Hermione and Ron sat nearest, both looking exhausted but relieved. Fleur stood by the window, radiating controlled worry. Tonks paced near the door, her hair cycling through colors too fast to track. The Greengrass sisters had claimed a corner, their bond connection to Harry letting them sense his condition directly. Susan Bones sat apart from the others, looking uncomfortable with the intimacy of the group. She'd bonded with Harry out of necessity, not affection, and was clearly still processing what that meant. He's awake, Daphne noticed first, her Ice Queen composure slipping into genuine relief. Harry's awake. The room erupted into motion. Hermione grabbed his hand. Ron slapped his shoulder. Tonks stopped pacing and just stared at him with an intensity that made his chest tight. How long? Harry's voice came out as a croak. 3 days. Fleur moved closer, her expression complex. You nearly died. The healers said the only reason you survived was the bond network. We shared the damage across all of us. Harry looked at his bonded allies. Fleur looked tired. The Greengrasses were paler than usual. Tonks had dark circles under her eyes. Even Susan, the newest bond, seemed drained. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't mean to hurt you. You saved London. Tonks's voice was rough. You saved all of us. Don't apologize for that. What's the damage? The statute? Gone. Hermione's expression was grim. The light pillar was visible across the city. Thousands of Muggles saw it. The Ministry is in crisis mode, but there's no covering this up. And Malachar? Confirmed dead. His body, what was left of it, dissolved completely when the ritual failed. Ron shifted uncomfortably. But here's the weird part. His people, the Hollow Crown, they didn't stop fighting when he died. They retreated, sure, but it wasn't chaotic. It was organized. Someone else is in charge, Harry said slowly. That's what we think. Malachar was old and powerful, but an organization that's lasted 1,000 years doesn't collapse because one leader falls. Hermione pulled out her ever-present notes. We're investigating, but so far we can't identify who might have taken over. Harry thought about Malachar's final words. The sleeper, the thing beneath Britain, a threat so severe that the throne itself had been built to contain it. There's something else, he said. Something Malachar told me before he died. He explained the sleeper, the cage, the true purpose of the throne. As he spoke, he watched understanding and horror spread across his friends' faces. So Malachar wasn't the real threat, Hermione said when he finished. He was trying to claim the throne before this sleeper awakens. And by stopping him, we might have removed the only person who understood how to keep it contained. Harry stared at the ceiling. Great. I traded one nightmare for a bigger one. We don't know that. Fleur's voice was firm. Malachar could have been lying. Even if he wasn't, the sleeper is still dormant. We have time to learn more, to prepare. How much time? Unknown. But we're not helpless. She moved to stand beside his bed, her presence steady and reassuring. We have the throne. We have the bonds. We have each other. Whatever comes, we face it together. Harry looked at her, then at the others, this strange collection of people who'd become bound to him through circumstance and choice. Not the 7 the throne required. Not yet, but closer than he'd been. 2 more, he said. The throne needs 7 bonds for full power. If the sleeper is as dangerous as Malachar claimed, we need to complete the network. Luna, Hermione said immediately. The Lovegood connection to Avalon Sears. She's on the list. And someone else. Harry thought about the research, the bloodlines, the potential candidates. Padma Patil. The knowledge-sharing traditions. Both are possibilities, Fleur agreed. But Harry, rushing bonds is dangerous. The throne requires genuine connection. Remember? You can't force it. I know. But we also can't wait forever. He pushed himself upright despite the protests of his healing body. We've won a battle, but the war's getting bigger. I need to be ready for what comes next. What comes next is rest, Tonks said firmly. Healer's orders. My orders. Everyone's orders. You nearly killed yourself 3 days ago, and you're not getting out of that bed until someone with actual medical credentials says you can. Tonks? Not negotiable. Her expression was fierce, her bond connection radiating genuine concern. We just got you back. We're not losing you to stubbornness. Harry wanted to argue. The urgency was real. The sleeper, the Hollow Crown's survival, the collapsed statute, all of it demanding action. But his body agreed with Tonks, aching and exhausted in ways that couldn't be ignored. Fine, he said. But tomorrow we plan. Today you heal. Tonks sat on the edge of his bed, claiming the space with characteristic directness. The world's not ending in the next 12 hours. Take the time. The next 2 days passed in a blur of recovery and revelation. The statute of secrecy's fall dominated wizarding news. The ministry scrambled to manage the crisis, implementing emergency protocols that had been theoretical for centuries. Muggle governments were being contacted, negotiations beginning that would reshape the world Harry had grown up in. Helena Ashworth's regulatory proposals had been shelved. Nobody cared about inheritance registration when the entire magical world was suddenly visible. But Harry noticed she hadn't disappeared. She was positioning herself as a voice of reason, advocating for managed integration with the Muggle world. She's pivoting, Hermione observed during one of their planning sessions. The statute's collapse should have destroyed her political career, but instead she's adapting, building new influence. Does that mean she's not connected to Malachar after all? Or it means she was always the backup plan? Someone positioned to take power regardless of how events unfolded. Hermione shook her head. We can't trust her, but we also can't move against her without proof. The Hollow Crown had gone quiet, which worried Harry more than open aggression would have. An organized retreat meant organization remained. Someone directing assets, preserving resources, planning next moves. On the personal front, the bonds continued strengthening. Harry felt his connections to Fleur, Daphne, Astoria, Susan, and Tonks growing more defined each day. Their emotions were more distinct now, their presences in his awareness clearer. Susan was still adjusting. She'd bonded in the heat of crisis, without the deliberation the others had been able to exercise. Now she was processing what that meant. Her life suddenly intertwined with Harry's, her magic connected to his, her emotions occasionally bleeding into his awareness. "This is weird," she told him during one of his hospital room visitor sessions. "I don't dislike you, Potter, but I don't really know you either. And now I can feel you. All the time. I'm sorry. If there was a way to undo it. There isn't. And honestly, even if there was, I'm not sure I'd want to." She crossed her arms, defensive but honest. "What you're doing, the throne, the bonds, protecting people, it matters. I want to be part of that. I just need time to figure out what that looks like. Take whatever time you need. The bond doesn't require anything specific from you. You're not obligated to." "I know. That's actually what makes it okay." Susan almost smiled. "If you were demanding something, I'd probably hex you. But you're just there. Concerned and protective and occasionally annoyingly noble. It's tolerable. High praise. Don't let it go to your head." Padma Patil visited on his third day of recovery. Hermione had contacted her, explaining the situation with characteristic thoroughness. Padma had listened, asked approximately 1,000 questions, and then announced she was coming to see Harry personally before making any decisions. She entered his hospital room with the focused intensity Harry remembered from their shared classes, always analyzing, always processing, never satisfied with surface explanations. "The Avalon Throne," she said without preamble. "I've spent the last 48 hours researching everything I could find. The historical records are fragmentary but fascinating. The magical theory behind the bonding system is unlike anything in modern practice." "Hello to you too, Padma." "Hello. Sorry." She had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "I get focused when I'm researching. Parvati says it makes me insufferable." "It's fine. What did you find?" Padma pulled a sheaf of notes from her bag, nearly as thick as Hermione's usual collection. "The Patil family's connection to Avalon predates our recorded history. We were part of a knowledge exchange network that spanned continents. Magical traditions sharing discoveries through trained intermediaries. When Avalon fell, that network fractured. But the potential for connection apparently remained in our bloodline. So you're eligible for bonding. Theoretically." Padma's analytical gaze fixed on him. "What I don't understand is why. The throne requires genuine emotional connection. Trust, affection, loyalty. We've barely spoken outside of DA meetings. Why would I qualify?" Harry considered the question. It was a good one. He'd been so focused on bloodline potential that he hadn't thought much about the emotional component with Padma specifically. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe potential is about more than existing relationships. Maybe it's about capacity for connection. People who could form genuine bonds if given the opportunity. That's remarkably uncertain for someone asking me to link my magic to his. I'm not asking anything yet. I'm explaining what I understand, which isn't everything. The choice is entirely yours." Padma studied him for a long moment. Harry felt her attention like a physical weight, being analyzed, evaluated, measured against some internal standard he couldn't see. "You're different than I expected," she said finally. "The stories about you always emphasize action. Charging into danger, fighting dark wizards, heroic confrontation. But talking to you now, you seem more thoughtful, more uncertain. The stories leave out the parts where I have no idea what I'm doing. Most stories do." She smiled slightly. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Go ahead. The 5 witches you've already bonded with, do you love them?" Harry blinked at the directness. "That's complicated. I assumed. But I'd like to understand your perspective." He thought about how to answer. The bonds were intimate but not quite romantic, or at least not uniformly romantic. Each connection felt different. "Fleur, I respect deeply. We understand each other in ways that feel significant. There's attraction, but also something simpler, partnership." He paused, sorting through feelings. "Daphne and Astoria I care about, maybe more than I should given how briefly we've known each other. The bond accelerated something that might have developed naturally over time. And Tonks? Susan. Tonks sees me clearly. She knows what it's like to be defined by something outside your control, the metamorphmagus gift, my scar and prophecy. That shared understanding matters. Harry shifted in the bed, uncomfortable with the vulnerability of the conversation. Susan, I barely know. We bonded in crisis. But I can feel her integrity through the connection. She's fundamentally honest in a way I respect. None of that is love. No, not yet. Maybe not ever with some of them. Harry met Padma's eyes. The throne requires genuine connection, but it doesn't specify what kind. Love might develop in some bonds. In others, it might be something else: friendship, partnership, mutual purpose. I don't think that makes them less valid. Padma absorbed this, her expression thoughtful. That's actually reassuring. I was worried you were building a harem. 7 witches competing for your romantic attention. The reality seems more nuanced. I hope so. I'm trying to be honest with everyone about what this is and isn't. That comes through. She put away her notes and stood. I'm not saying yes. Not yet. But I'm not saying no either. I want to observe how you interact with your bonded witches. Understand the dynamic better before committing. That's fair. Take whatever time you need. I will. She paused at the door. For what it's worth, Potter, the magical theory behind the throne fascinates me. If the connection ends up being genuine, participating in something this historically significant would be an honor. That might be the most Ravenclaw reason for bonding I've ever heard. Probably. She almost smiled. Get some rest. You look terrible. Thanks, Padma. You're welcome. Luna came the next day. Unlike Padma's analytical visit, Luna simply walked in, sat beside his bed, and took his hand. Hello, Harry, she said. I've been waiting for you to be ready. Harry blinked. Ready for what? For me to help you properly. The Raxperts told me you'd need 7 bonds, but the timing had to be right. The celestial alignments weren't favorable until yesterday. Celestial alignments? Of course. The throne is connected to the ley lines, and the ley lines are affected by astronomical events. Bonding during unfavorable conditions could have weakened the connection. Luna smiled serenely. But today is perfect. The moon is waxing. Jupiter is in alignment with the old power sites, and your energy has stabilized enough to accept another bond without strain. Harry had learned, over years of knowing Luna, that dismissing her pronouncements was a mistake. She saw things others couldn't, whether Raxperts were real or not. Her insights tended to prove accurate in ways that defied explanation. Luna, he said carefully, are you saying you want to bond with me? I'm saying I've always been meant to bond with you. Since 4th year, when I first saw the golden thread connecting you to something ancient. She squeezed his hand. I've been waiting patiently. I knew you'd get here eventually. You never said anything. You weren't ready to hear it. You were focused on Voldemort, on survival, on immediate threats. The throne was dormant, the bonds impossible. But I watched. And I waited. Harry felt the throne's recognition pulsing in his awareness. Luna's connection to Avalon Sears was stronger than any of the other potentials he'd encountered. Looking at her now, he could see it. Faint golden light around her edges, visible only to his throne-enhanced senses. You can see the ley lines, he said slowly. The magical structure of the world. That's what the Nargles and Raxperts really are, manifestations of power that most people can't perceive. Some of them. Others are just creatures that choose to be invisible to people who wouldn't understand them. Luna's smile widened. But yes, I see the lines. I've always seen them. My mother saw them too before the accident. Luna, Harry struggled for words. I don't want you to bond because you think you're supposed to, because of destiny or celestial alignment or whatever. If this happens, it should be because you genuinely want it. Harry. Luna's voice was gentle but firm. I've spent my life being told my perceptions aren't real, that what I see is imagination or madness. But you've never dismissed me. Not once. Even when you didn't understand, you listened. That's just basic respect. To you, maybe. To me, it's everything. She lifted his hand, pressing it against her cheek. I want this. Not because the stars say so, because you're kind and brave and you treat strange people like they matter. The alignment just made me confident the timing was right. The bond formed before Harry consciously reached for it. Luna's connection was unlike the others. Deeper somehow, touching parts of his awareness that he hadn't known existed. He could see through her eyes for a moment. The hospital room overlaid with rivers of light, magical currents flowing through walls and floor and ceiling. The ley lines visible as she'd always seen them. It was beautiful and strange and entirely Luna. "Oh," she said softly. "You can see them now too." "I can." "Luna, this is incredible. It's always been there. You just needed help looking." She released his hand but stayed close. 6 bonds now. One more and the throne's full power awakens. "I hope you're ready. The world is going to get much stranger." Harry thought about the sleeper beneath Britain, about the Hollow Crown's survival, about the statue's fall and the chaos that was reshaping everything he knew. "Strange," he said, "is becoming normal." Luna laughed. "Good. Normal people are boring anyway." Chapter 5 End Chapter 6. Knowledge and Desire. Padma Patil returned a week later with 3 notebooks full of observations and a decision. Harry was finally out of St. Mungo's, recuperating at a safe house Fleur had established in the Scottish Highlands. The location was remote, heavily warded, and blessed with the kind of silence that let him actually think. His bonded witches rotated through, someone always present, the connection requiring proximity to fully stabilize after the chaos of Malakar's defeat. Today it was Luna's turn, which meant the safe house was full of humming and the occasional declaration about invisible creatures Harry was learning to half believe in. She'd taken over the kitchen, making tea that smelled like flowers and tasted like contentment. "Someone's approaching the ward boundary," Luna announced, not looking up from her brewing. "It feels like organized thoughts and controlled anxiety. Probably Padma." Harry moved to the window. Sure enough, Padma was walking up the mountain path, wrapped in a traveling cloak against the highland wind. Her posture was purposeful, her pace steady. "She's made up her mind about something," he said. "Obviously. The question is which way." Luna poured tea into mismatched cups. "Stay. Whatever she's decided, you should hear it too." Luna nodded, apparently unsurprised. Harry opened the door before Padma could knock. "Come in. Tea's ready." Padma entered, shaking off the cold, her analytical gaze sweeping the safe house interior. Impressive wards. Fleur's work. Mostly. Bill helped with some of the structural elements. The layering is elegant. Each ward reinforces the others while maintaining independent function. She accepted the tea Luna offered with a polite nod. "Thank you, Luna. It smells unusual. It's designed to promote clarity of thought. I assumed you'd want to think clearly for this conversation." Padma's eyebrow rose, but she sipped without comment. They settled around the small table, Harry across from Padma, Luna slightly to the side, observing with her characteristic serene attention. "You've been watching us," Harry said. "For a week. What did you conclude?" "Several things." Padma pulled out one of her notebooks, though she didn't open it. "First, the bond network functions more like a magical ecosystem than a simple power-sharing arrangement. Each connection reinforces the others, creating emergent stability that exceeds the sum of individual bonds." "That sounds like a yes. I'm getting there." She set the notebook down. "Second, the emotional dynamics are more complex than I initially understood. You're not just sharing magic, you're sharing aspects of consciousness. Fleur's perceptiveness has improved since bonding. The Greengrass sisters' curse is in full remission. Susan's truth sense has sharpened. These aren't just power boosts, they're fundamental enhancements. The throne augments what's already there," Harry said. "At least, that's what I've observed." "Exactly. Which brings me to my third conclusion." Padma met his eyes directly. "If I bond with you, my analytical capabilities will likely expand. The knowledge-sharing tradition my family carries could manifest more fully. I could become something closer to what my ancestors were. A true intermediary, capable of understanding and connecting disparate magical systems. And that appeals to you." "It terrifies me." Padma's composure cracked slightly. "I've spent my life building walls around my emotions. Logic is safe. Analysis is controllable. The idea of opening my mind to someone else, feeling their feelings, having my thoughts influenced by external consciousness. She stopped, regaining control. It goes against everything I've relied on. Harry understood. He'd felt similar fears before his first bonds formed. The vulnerability of genuine connection, the loss of isolation's false safety. I won't pretend it's easy, he said. The bonds are intimate. There's no hiding from someone who can feel your emotions directly. But it's also, he searched for the right words, anchoring. When everything else is chaotic, the connections remind you that you're not alone. That people have your back not because they're obligated but because they actually know you. That's what I observed with your existing bonds. The mutual support seems authentic, not performed. Padma's fingers traced the edge of her notebook. I spent time with each of your bonded witches this week, individually and in groups. They all said versions of the same thing, that bonding with you was frightening at first, but ultimately transformative. They're biased. They're literally connected to me. Yes, but the bond would make deception painful. They'd be incapable of lying convincingly about their experience. Padma almost smiled. I applied logical analysis to an emotional question. Very on-brand for me. Luna laughed softly. The best analysis often requires understanding emotions too. They're data, just harder to quantify. Perhaps. Padma took a breath. I've decided to bond. Not because the advantages outweigh the risks, they don't mathematically, but because some things can't be calculated. Some decisions have to be made on faith. Are you sure? I don't want you to commit to something you'll regret. I'm sure. I've been sure since yesterday, actually. I just needed one more day to organize my thoughts about why. She extended her hand across the table. Harry Potter, I formally request to bond with the throne of Avalon. Is my request accepted? The formality felt strange. None of the others had been so ceremonial. But Harry recognized it for what it was. Padma taking control of the process, making it something she'd chosen rather than something that happened to her. It's accepted. He took her hand. The bond formed slowly, more deliberately than Luna's instant connection, as if Padma's analytical nature required time to process each stage. Harry felt her consciousness brush against his, cool and structured, a mind that organized everything into categories and subcategories. And then the walls came down. Beneath Padma's careful logic was a storm of contained emotion, loneliness, ambition, fear of inadequacy, desperate longing for intellectual equals who wouldn't find her strange. She'd built her walls so high that even she'd forgotten what they protected. Harry let her feel his acceptance. Not judgment of her hidden emotions, but recognition, understanding, the knowledge that he'd seen her complexity and found it valuable rather than problematic. Padma gasped. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Probably the first she'd allowed in years. I didn't realize, she whispered. I didn't realize how much I was hiding. Most of us don't. The walls feel necessary until they're not. Is this what all the bonds feel like? This exposure. Different for everyone. But yes, there's always exposure. That's the point. Genuine connection requires vulnerability. Padma wiped her eyes with her free hand, composure returning but different now, less rigid. I can feel them, the others, distant but present. The network connecting. You're part of it now. It's overwhelming, but she was smiling. Overwhelming and extraordinary. Luna moved to embrace her. A gesture that the old Padma would probably have deflected, but the newly bonded Padma leaned into gratefully. Welcome, Luna said simply. You belong here. And she did. Harry felt it through the bond, Padma's certainty that this was right, that she'd made the correct choice despite all her calculated doubts. 7 bonds. Almost there. The 7th bond didn't come for another month. Not because they couldn't find candidates. There were others on Hermione's list, bloodlines with potential Avalon connections. But after Padma's bonding, Harry had pushed back against rushing the final connection. It has to be right, he told the others during a strategy meeting. 6 bonds formed through genuine choice, genuine connection. If we force the seventh just to complete the network, we undermine everything we've built. The sleeper isn't going to wait for us to be emotionally ready, Tonks pointed out. No, but we also don't know when or if it's actually going to wake up. Malachar could have been lying. He wasn't. Luna's voice was quiet but certain. I can feel it now through the ley lines. Something stirring in the deep places. Not awake yet, but not fully dormant either. How long do we have? I don't know. Months, maybe. Years, possibly. The timeline is unclear. Harry nodded. Then we use the time wisely. Build our strength, learn about the threat, prepare for when it does emerge. But we don't panic bond just to hit a number. The others accepted this, though he could feel their concern through the bond network. 6 connections had given him significant power. The ley lines responded to his will more readily than ever, and the throne's protective magic covered all of Britain now, weak but present. 7 would complete the circuit, unlock capabilities they could only guess at. But Harry had learned, through painful experience, that power without foundation was worthless. The bonds mattered because they were real. Anything else would be betrayal of everything they'd built. The Hollow Crown made their move 3 weeks later. Harry was in London, meeting with ministry officials about the ongoing statute crisis, when his throne sense screamed warning. Not an attack on him, something else. Something targeting his bonds. Padma. He operat without thinking, following the bond connection through space to wherever she was. He landed in the courtyard of a ruined castle somewhere in Wales, immediately surrounded by grey-robed soldiers. But they weren't attacking him. They weren't even looking at him. They were watching Padma. She stood at the center of the courtyard, wand lowered, facing a woman in robes different from the others. Richer, more elaborate. The woman's face was hidden behind a mask that seemed to shift and change, never settling on a single expression. Harry Potter. The woman's voice was melodious and wrong. How predictable. Touch one of your precious bonds and you come running. Let her go. She came here freely. Didn't you, dear? Padma's voice was strained. She has information about the knowledge-sharing tradition. My family's history. Things that were lost when Avalon fell. I'm offering her a trade, the masked woman continued. Ancient knowledge in exchange for a small service. Nothing harmful. Just information about the throne's current capabilities. You're trying to turn her against me. I'm offering her a choice. Something you claim to value so highly. The woman spread her hands. What kind of leader refuses his followers the chance to choose freely? Harry looked at Padma. Through the bond, he felt her conflict. The temptation of knowledge she'd spent her life seeking. The guilt of even considering betrayal. The fear that Harry would reject her for being tempted at all. Padma, he said quietly. Whatever you're feeling, it's okay. You haven't done anything wrong. She's offering records from before the fall. Texts my family lost centuries ago. Information about what the knowledge sharers actually did, what we were capable of. Padma's voice cracked. I know it's a trap. I know she's manipulating me. But part of me wants it anyway. That's human. Wanting things isn't betrayal. Then you'll let her choose? The masked woman sounded amused. How enlightened. Harry ignored her, focusing on Padma. Here's what I know. Whatever she's offering comes with strings. Maybe not obvious ones, but they're there. Malachar spent 1,000 years manipulating people through their desires. His successors learned from him. She said the same thing you would, the woman countered. That I'm manipulating her. But perhaps manipulation is just another word for offering someone what they want. You've been doing it too, haven't you? Offering protection, power, connection. Drawing these witches into your orbit with promises. The difference is I don't hide what I'm asking for. The bonds are transparent. Everyone who joined knew what they were getting into. Did they? Did Tonks know she'd end up emotionally entangled with someone 8 years younger? Did Susan know she'd be linked to you for life after one desperate choice? Did any of them truly understand what they were signing up for? Or did they just trust you because the alternative was worse? Harry felt the words land. Not because they were true, but because they touched real doubts he carried. The fear that he was using people, that the bonds were another form of control no matter how consensual they seemed. But Padma's voice cut through the spiral. "You're trying to make him doubt himself." Her tone had changed, sharper, more analytical. Classic manipulation technique. Undermine confidence by highlighting unavoidable ambiguities. Make perfect the enemy of good. The masked woman turned toward her. "Clever girl. I'm a researcher. I recognize rhetoric when I hear it." Padma stepped away from the woman, moving toward Harry. "Whatever knowledge you're offering, the cost is too high. Not because I trust Harry perfectly. I don't trust anyone perfectly. But because your alternative is clearly worse. You choose uncertainty over knowledge? That doesn't sound like you. I choose connection over isolation. That's exactly like me, the version I'm learning to become." Padma reached Harry's side, taking his hand. "I felt your doubts just now, when she was talking. You're not sure you're doing this right." "I'm not." "Good. Leaders who think they're always right become tyrants." She squeezed his fingers. "I don't need you to be perfect. I need you to keep trying." The masked woman watched this exchange silently. When she spoke again, her voice had lost its persuasive warmth. "Disappointing. I'd hoped the scholar would be more susceptible to academic temptation." She gestured, and her soldiers began retreating. "This isn't over, heir. We'll find weaknesses in your precious bond network eventually. Everyone has something they want badly enough to betray their principles for." "Who are you?" Harry demanded. "You're not Malachar. Who took over the Hollow Crown?" "Someone who's been waiting much longer than Malachar ever did." The woman's mask flickered one final time. "We'll meet again, Harry Potter. And next time, I won't underestimate the power of emotional bonds." She vanished, taking her soldiers with her. Harry and Padma stood alone in the ruined courtyard, breathing hard, the echoes of confrontation fading into silence. "Are you okay?" Harry asked. "No. Yes. I don't know." Padma released his hand, wrapping her arms around herself. "She knew exactly what to offer me, like she'd studied my psychology. It was terrifying how precisely she targeted my weaknesses. The Hollow Crowns had centuries to learn how to manipulate people. You resisted anyway." "Barely. If you hadn't shown up, you would have resisted anyway. I felt your choice forming before I even spoke. You'd already decided not to take her offer." Padma looked at him uncertainly. "You really believe that?" "I felt it through the bond. You were tempted, but you'd already chosen. My arrival just gave you support for a decision you'd made yourself." Something eased in Padma's expression. The bond between them pulsed with relief and gratitude and the beginning of something that might become trust. "We should get back," she said. "Tell the others what happened." "Yeah." But Harry paused, struck by a thought. "The masked woman," she said she'd been waiting longer than Malachar. "What does that mean?" "Malachar was 1,000 years old." "I don't know. But we should find out." Padma's analytical focus was returning, steadying her. "There's too much we don't understand about the Hollow Crown's history. We've been so focused on immediate threats that we haven't done proper research into their origins. Add it to the list. The list keeps getting longer. Welcome to my life." Padma almost smiled at that. "I'm starting to understand why you always look exhausted." The attack on Padma changed things. Harry convened his entire bond network, all 6 witches, plus Hermione and Ron as trusted advisors, to discuss what had happened and what it meant. They gathered in the Highland safe house, filling the small space with the combined energy of 7 interconnected magical presences. Harry could feel them all now. Fleur's fierce protectiveness, Daphne's calculating assessment, Astoria's gentle worry, Susan's honest determination, Tonks's controlled fury, Luna's serene insight, and Padma's analytical focus. 6 bonds, 6 perspectives, 6 voices in the conversation that followed. She knew exactly how to approach Padma, Fleur said. That level of intelligence suggests extensive surveillance. They've been watching us longer than we realized. Or they have sources inside our operation. Daphne's voice was cold. The spy question was never resolved. Someone gave them information about the Grimald attack. Someone could be giving them information now. We've been careful since then, Hermione countered. Limited who knows what, varied our patterns. Clearly not careful enough. Fighting among ourselves is what they want, Luna said quietly. The masked woman's whole approach was designed to create doubt and division. We shouldn't make it easy for her. Luna's right. Harry stood, drawing attention. The spy situation is a problem we need to address. But paranoia is worse than ignorance. We investigate carefully without tearing ourselves apart. How do you propose we do that? Susan asked. Her truth sense was active, probing the room. I can tell no one here is lying, but that doesn't mean there isn't a leak somewhere in the broader network. We compartmentalize more strictly. Different teams know different things. If information leaks, we can trace which compartment it came from. That'll slow down coordination, Tonks pointed out. Better slow than compromised. The discussion continued for hours: security protocols, intelligence gathering, threat assessment. By the end, they'd established new procedures and assigned responsibilities. Not perfect solutions, but progress. As the others filed out, Padma lingered. Thank you, she said, for trusting me. After what happened, some leaders would have questioned my loyalty. You didn't do anything disloyal. You were tested and you passed. I was tempted and I hesitated. That's not the same as passing. It's exactly passing. Passing doesn't mean never being tempted. It means choosing right despite the temptation. Harry held her gaze. I trust you, Padma. The bond makes it impossible to hide our true feelings. I know you're committed to this, even when it's hard. Padma absorbed this. Then, impulsively, she stepped forward and hugged him. It was awkward. Padma wasn't naturally demonstrative, and the gesture was clearly outside her comfort zone. But Harry returned it, feeling her gratitude and relief flow through the bond. I'm not good at this, she muttered against his shoulder. The emotional part. It doesn't come naturally. Neither am I, really. But we're learning. Together. That's the whole point. A week later, they found the seventh bond. Or rather, the seventh bond found them. Harry was researching Hollow Crown history in the Hogwarts library. The school had reopened despite the statute crisis, though attendance was scattered and many students stayed home. Hermione had arranged access to the restricted section, and Harry had spent 3 days digging through ancient texts that mostly yielded frustration. He was halfway through a particularly dense volume on pre-Avalon magical traditions when someone sat down across from him. You're looking in the wrong place. Harry looked up. A young woman, maybe his age, with dark hair and sharp features. She wore Hogwarts robes, but he didn't recognize her from any of his classes. Excuse me? The Hollow Crown. You're trying to research them through official histories, but they predate Avalon. You won't find useful records in texts compiled after the throne was established. Who are you? Someone who knows things. She leaned forward, eyes intent. My family has passed down knowledge for generations, waiting for this moment. We're not part of any bloodline your researcher friend identified. We were hidden deliberately, removed from records to protect what we carry. Harry's throne sense was tingling. Not warning exactly, more like recognition. The same feeling he'd had with his other potential bonds, but somehow deeper, older. What do you carry? Memory. The girl's voice dropped. The sleeper isn't just a creature, Harry Potter. It's a consciousness, an intelligence that dreamed itself into existence before humans walked the earth. And my ancestors were the ones who first discovered how to communicate with it. Harry felt cold. Communicate with it? Not control, never control, but understand, predict, prepare for. She held his gaze. The throne wasn't built just to cage the sleeper. It was built to be a bridge. A way for humanity to eventually reach an accommodation with something that could never be destroyed. How do you know all this? Because it's been passed down mother to daughter for 1,000 generations. We're the keepers of the old knowledge. The ones who remember what everyone else forgot. She reached across the table, touching his hand. And I've been waiting my entire life to meet you. The bond didn't just form, it erupted. Harry felt power flood through the connection, more than all his other bonds combined. The girl's consciousness merged with his, and suddenly he was seeing the sleeper, vast beyond comprehension, curled beneath the bedrock of Britain like a dreaming god. Not evil, not good, just ancient and hungry, and slowly waking from a sleep that had lasted longer than humanity's existence. The first humans who discovered it terrified and awed. The careful generations of study, of attempted communication, of developing techniques to soothe and delay and redirect. The founding of Avalon, not as a kingdom but as a containment structure. The throne, built to channel the ley lines in specific patterns that kept the sleeper dormant. And the 7 bonds, not just power amplification, but a collective consciousness capable of interfacing with something no single mind could comprehend. Harry surfaced from the vision gasping. The girl, he still didn't know her name, was trembling, tears streaming down her face. "You see now," she whispered. "You understand what you're for. Who are you?" "My name is Morgan, and I'm the last keeper of the old knowledge. The Hollow Crown killed everyone else in my family, trying to prevent this moment." Her grip on his hand tightened. "But they failed. The 7th bond is complete. The throne can wake fully now." Harry felt it happening, the network completing, all 7 connections snapping into perfect alignment. Power surged through him, through all of them. A circuit finally closed after 1,000 years of waiting. The throne of Avalon was whole again, and far beneath Britain something stirred in response.